Yes. I'd like to call the meeting of the Enfield Planning and Zoning to order.
Hello, we want to start the meeting.
Where's Charlie? He's in the middle.
Oh, Charlie's not here.
Go ahead.
Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and justice for all. You tell me when you...
Okay. What's first? Fire evacuation.
I'm going to read that because that's my next page.
Okay.
Fire evacuation announcement. In case of fire, there are two ways to exit the chambers. To my left, exit through the council chamber door, turn left and walk down one flight of stairs and out of the building. Or exit the door to the rear of these chambers. In either case, once out of the building, walk a safe distance away from the building.
Okay, roll call.
Roll call.
Charles Durin, absent. Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Kathleen Sarno.
Here.
Peter Falk here. Lori Longi.
Here.
Nicholas Sefakis.
Here.
Charles Ladd, absent. Alan Drynan, absent. Michael Ludwig.
Here.
May I have approval of the minutes from May 7th?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from May 7th meeting.
Second.
I have a couple.
Anybody have any corrections or additions?
I do. On page 4 of 13, under where it was after Commissioner Drynan, then it said Commissioner Longi. After the second line, it said second kitchen for their own personal use. Commissioner Ludwig agreed, and then the rest of the commission agreed. And that was missing.
Which page was that? Sorry.
Page 4. It was about the second kitchens. And then on page 12, Commissioner,
Sorry to interrupt you, Lori. We're talking about the page 4. Commissioner Longi stated she does not see why they wouldn't want to prohibit people from wanting a second kitchen.
right, for their own personal use.
And then you wanna add,
Commissioner Ludwig agreed, and then the rest of the commission agreed. So that was missing. It looked like I was here by myself that night.
Probably were.
And then on page 12, under the, it's second paragraph. Again, Commissioner Longi said in her opinion that they would need to come before the commission. And then cited the past problems with the propane tanks that were an issue in town, and then the commission agreed. That little section was missing. And that's all I found.
There any additions or more additions or corrections? So we have a
Motion made in second.
motion on the floor. Thank you. All those in favor?
Let's do a roll call.
Okay, we'll do roll call.
Elizabeth Ballard.
4.
Kathleen Sarno.
4.
Peter Falk, 4. Lori Longi.
4.
Nicholas Sefakis.
4.
Michael Ludwig.
4.
Staff report. Zoning enforcement officer.
Unfortunately, she was sick today, so I haven't talked to her, but I believe she's not going to be able to come tonight. There were a couple matters that Mr. Drinan had mentioned he wanted to talk about. We'll have to wait till June, I guess. I know in the past it's always been the first meeting of the month, it seems, so why don't we just try to make that a habit, and I'll get Ginny to come in on June 4th, I think is our next meeting.
She feels better.
Assistant Town Planner?
That's me. Hi, everybody. Just have 5 things tonight, all very quick, I hope. First, Town Manager's Office is reminding me that we need 3 people for a food truck subcommittee. Remember, the purpose of that subcommittee is kind of 3 members from council, 3 members from this commission getting together to talk over food truck issues, maybe craft some draft legislation to control it in the public sphere as well as in the private sphere. So we're waiting for 3 members. Anybody want to volunteer?
Yeah,
Raise your
wasn't
hand
it
tonight.
you?
No, I wouldn't, I didn't want to be on that committee.
I know it was me and Charlie. I don't know who the third person was. I thought it was you.
Okay.
No.
Would anybody
Any
like to be
volunteers?
on that?
There you go.
Michael?
You can participate.
It's not like a
Subcommittee.
voting body or anything, yeah. All right, so Mike,
Kathleen?
Peter, and I'll keep Charlie on it?
It's
Yeah,
only one.
I would. Charlie wanted to stay on it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Charlie and Mike and
Peter.
All right, I'll hand your names over to town office, and you'll, I guess, be in touch. 136 South Road is a convenience store. You might remember it. It was only a few weeks ago that we accepted it. The the plan that they submitted to building included a breakfast bar. When I asked about what that meant, the woman who runs it also runs a hotel, so she's thinking kind of like, I wouldn't put it a full continental breakfast, but basically prepared foods arranged so that people could carry out.
That's very different than I think the original
This is
plans
why I'm bringing
were.
it to you. So
yeah, that is a little different. Yeah.
no seating. I've been assured of that. And it's just morning
You're gonna have
breakfast foods.
coffee and little danishes.
Coffee,
and, you know,
danishes. She was
you can
thinking
grab
like
and
maybe
go.
a waffle iron, a microwave to heat
Oh.
a few
Yeah,
things up.
I think I mean, my opinion is that's different. That's like
Okay.
having a restaurant in the convenience store. It's not just a bar so I think it's got to come
How should we
back
go
in.
about this? Do you want to? We can do this administratively if you don't want to drag
I
her
would
in,
like
or
to
we
see
can bring her in. Okay.
I mean, why wouldn't we want to know if there's going to be a restaurant in there? It's totally different than, and then there's health department things and
Yeah,
there's.
she's going to health department. She's been approved by the health department. Building just wasn't sure, and Ginny obviously wasn't sure about whether this was the same use as you had approved. So I said, let me go ask, see if we can. Is this part of a convenience store, or does this need to be administratively done in a formal way, or do we bring her back here?
The health
Approval.
department approved that? Or,
No, I
they
would
just
think-
approved her, just approved the.
No,
in
yeah,
general,
you guys had
right.
approved her. The health department had looked over what she's proposing
Right, but
and
now
had
would
signed
they
off
have
on
to
it.
look at this breakfast bar as well? Would they be concerned about
Oh,
that?
yeah, yeah.
so
No, she had taken it to
hasn't been
them.
approved by them for that.
Right,
then,
right.
For,
The health department, yes, she has. Sorry.
for the breakfast
Yes, for the breakfast bar.
bar. Okay. Okay.
But we don't know. She's having, basically, it could be a restaurant, and it's not what we saw, nor do we know anything
and I've got the
about
plans if anybody wants to look at it.
it. I don't want to look at it now.
I would have her come back in. It's a good thing she's approved by the health department already anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
but we need to know what she's going to be doing there. So, yeah.
So we haven't heard anything if the owner will redo the parking lot for our.
I haven't gotten any word back from them. I know we've sent, yeah, it is,
It's a mess.
absolutely. So
And to,
I'll check up on that later, because I
Right.
know Lori has asked me about that too.
It's not her problem. Sorry, it's not her problem, but now that,
Brings us to us,
now that gas
attention.
station's empty, it just, that section right there just looks awful.
and it actually is in our regulations, and I did mention this at the last couple of meetings about the maintenance, the site maintenance section of 9.10.9,
Right.
where we have that right to make sure we're opening a business and the parking lot is
Accessible
up
for
to-
people to get into?
Yeah.
It's, I tell you, it's tough. I don't know.
Okay. No, I've been down and taken pictures. It is not a proper parking lot. Okay, so we'll schedule her for June 6th, or June 4th, if that's okay with everyone. Third item, the solar workshop. I talked to Charlie today. I know at the last meeting, Mr. Drinan had suggested we handle this through the unresolved issues, all the various issues with solar panels. Charlie called and wanted me to remind everybody that this was intended to be a meeting between the Clean Energy Committee of town and this commission, more as a way to talk over various issues, just as we had started to do in the last meeting. So he's asking again if we can, this is Charlie and myself, I guess, asking again if we can do this maybe as a June special workshop. It would be June 4 plus 7, June 11th.
I'm not interested, personally.
Okay. Well, I mean, can we have one and then I guess interested parties could come? Just, I put it this way, we receive at least 2 or 3 calls a week from either homeowners or solar panel people or people that are just in favor of these things in general. And I want some way to redress their grievances, as it were. And also we've got, there's,
I think we need to talk about it. The issue's not going to go away.
yeah.
Go ahead, Peter.
I'll be there.
Have it.
I
Do
can't
whatever.
attend in June.
Yeah.
It's just a
Can't
tough
attend in
month for
June.
me
Okay.
to,
Too.
Set up a meeting and whoever
Why don't we
can
throw in
attend,
June and
welcome.
the
Those
folks
who
we get
can't-
there,
Go in
we get
June
there
if I
and-
can go, but I don't, yeah. But I agree, there are a lot of people that have interest in putting in these, on the solar panels, and something that needs to be talked about.
Door to door smartly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know
They're trying to grow business.
Yeah. It's, and you're not the only town. There was an article recently, I don't know if you saw, that
Yep.
many other towns are having issues too. So I think it'd be smart if we all got together. Okay, I'll schedule one for June 11th and we'll send out an invitation
Either.
to everybody. Speaking of other things, this isn't, I just want to put it on your radar screen. The aquifer protection overlay, we're kind of wrapping our heads about what has to be done about it. Ginny would love to come and do a kind of a brief presentation, catch everybody up. She says it won't take more than an hour. Depending on her availability and timing, maybe that could happen at the June workshop. Maybe it could happen in a regular meeting. I don't know. But I think I'll get back to you on that one because I'd like to meet with her first and get my head around everything too.
Don't we usually do those at our meetings, because it's part of our stuff? We have aquifer protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I just didn't, if it's going to take 45 minutes, I didn't know if you wanted to add that to a regular meeting where there's,
We have to do them every quarter,
At a meeting.
at a
Okay.
meeting here.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have to
okay.
start the meeting call,
again, I got to wrap my head around
Yeah.
what these mean. So,
But you're right, it's not usually 45 minutes worth.
no, and
It moves fairly quick.
I think Ginny was intending to kind of give us all a basis of how the Aquifer Protection Act works and what the responsibilities of the town are. And then the fifth thing, I know I said I'd get you a memo about Mackenzie and how it affects our zoning code. I haven't had time. It's obviously been a busy week. So we'll get that to you in June at some point. That's all I have for me.
At this point in the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who is present, provided that no one may discuss any matter of business at this time that is already elsewhere on the agenda. Any matter that is part of an open public hearing of the commission, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Does anyone wish to speak before the commission? First time around, second time around, does anyone wish to speak? Third time around, does anyone wish to speak? Okay. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about on, I'll find it in a minute, on correspondence?
Yes, tonight, when we got here, there was a letter on the table addressed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Charles Duran, Chairman, Liz Ballard, and commission members. And I'll read it into the record. Dear Chairman Duran, I would like to bring to the attention of the Planning and Zoning Commission a concern of mine and state a complaint regarding a collection of water flowing into a newly formed ditch adjacent to my northern property border from the northwest corner of my property into a storm drain north of the northwest corner of my house. This collection of water occurred as snow melted earlier this year and continued through mid to late April when the snow was gone and the rain was limited. I would like to request that the zoning enforcement officer check this area out after a substantial rainfall and would request that the water sample close to the drain be tested for hazardous contents. I would also that during the winter and until a week ago, the sump pump in my basement ran frequently during the melting times. Rainy days and soon afterwards, the pump ran as often as every 14 minutes. Your attention to my concern and complaint is appreciated. Sincerely, Maureen Mullen, 1425 King Street, Enfield, Connecticut, 06082. And the letter was dated May 21st, 2015. So, yeah, I was going to say, can we have Ginny go down there and look at it? And her request is after a rainfall. And I know we haven't had too much rain, so, but,
Peter, do you have anything?
No.
Who did I give the other letter to?
that was to be for the hearing.
Public hearing.
The public hearing.
Okay.
This one here?
I did want to mention one email that I saw from the Thompsonville Revitalization inviting the planning and zoning members to a bus tour somewhere up north, but it was...
East Hampton, Mass.
East
Yeah,
Hampton.
I meant to bring that up in my report.
And I know that I couldn't make it, but I just didn't want to forget to mention it.
Absolutely. It's May 29th, next Thursday. There's a bus that's leaving Town Hall at 6 p.m. The idea is to go up to East Hampton. There's a walking tour arranged with the town planner up there to talk over their revitalization efforts that have been ongoing. And I believe there's pizza and soda pop afterwards.
No takers, but
So if you're interested, like I said, 6 p.m. next Thursday, I would suggest RSVPing to myself or
Me.
or Peter.
You going?
From here.
Town Hall in the
Yes.
rear. Yeah.
Well, anybody who's interested in going can,
Yeah,
Let
Just
Peter
just
know.
let us know.
Yeah.
I can't go.
Okay. There won't be the last. We're going to do some other communities too, just to get ideas for, examples of what could be done here and how other communities are working on their revitalization projects.
Is anybody else interested right now in going? We are missing 2 commissioners, so.
it came via email anyway.
Yeah.
At what?
It
It
did.
came out via email.
Today?
So everybody will have it, but you probably didn't check your email.
No, I did not check my email.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Where are we? Commissioners? Correspondence? Does anybody have anything?
Guess not.
No?
Nope.
Oh, you're not gonna let go of that, are you?
What?
Okay, bond releases, public hearing 2627.02, Cherrywood Estates. But that's bond releases.
There's, I don't know if anybody is here from Garino Homes, but basically they've,
There's a hand.
okay. If you want, I can speak for you. Basically, they have gone to council to ask that the street be accepted. Council has put it on their agenda, and as such, then it gets kicked over to planning and zoning for review and approval. There's really 2 motions here. One would be to decrease the amount of the letter of credit, which was done in lieu of a bond. We need to keep 15% for a maintenance fee, and you can see the letter that was attached as to how much that would be.
I have nothing.
It's been in, it was in the last packet.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I
Yeah, it's
don't
past.
have it.
I had trouble finding it too. It's past the first PH there, and then the second motion would be a motion to recommend or not recommending acceptance of the street.
You can have that.
There's a letter in here from John Cabivo from April 28, 2015, saying that all the site work had been done, and he recommends that we sign off on the bond release.
Yeah. And just so you know, I don't know if you have the same copy I do, but I think between the time we put this packet together and now, the Director of Public Works has signed that off, signed off their report for acceptance, and as the Town Clerk has signed off that they received it from Town Council.
So are we releasing everything but this 15%?
Yes.
Okay.
In this case, because it's not a bond, you would be voting to accept a letter of credit in a reduced amount, 15% of the original amount, which comes out to, for the record, hold on one sec.
$38,947.50.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we checked with the finance director that a letter of credit would be okay going forward. And that's held for a year to see what happens with the road through all seasons.
Okay. So somebody want to make the motion? Yeah. You have the amount, Peter. I don't have the amount. So
Okay, I'll make a motion that we reduce the bond for Cherrywood Estates. It's actually a letter of credit. The original amount was $259,650. And I'd make a motion that we reduce that to $38,947.50, which is 15% of the original amount.
Second.
Discussion?
Motion's made and second?
Yep. Everybody good?
Any conversation?
discussion?
You
Yeah, we're
second
good.
that?
Yeah.
No, Nick did.
Nick.
That way? Okay. Roll call, please.
Okay. Elizabeth Ballard,
4.
Kathleen Sarno,
4.
Peter Falk, 4, Lori Longi,
4.
Nicholas Sefakis,
4.
Michael Ludwig.
4.
There you go.
Okay.
The second motion in there, just it would be needed if you're interested. You'd have to recommend that the council approve acceptance of the street. The council accepts the street. So
There was a resolution on the desk from the council, a
Yeah.
proposed resolution, which is, I guess they're going to vote on it maybe the next meeting. It kind of states all the facts, but I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the town council to accept the street as proposed in this resolution.
Second.
Did somebody second that?
Yeah, Michael?
Okay. I'm partially deaf in both ears.
Discussion?
Pardon me?
Does anybody want to discuss it?
Yeah.
I think we've been
Michael
beating it
did?
then. Yeah, you seconded it.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Okay.
I don't have any. Do you have any?
No.
I don't know.
Okay, let's do a vote. Who's in favor? Elizabeth Ballard? Are you in 4?
Yes,
4.
4.
Kathleen Sarno?
4.
Peter Falk, 4. Lori Longi?
For the 824.
Nicholas Sefakis?
4.
Michael Ludwig?
4.
There you go. We approve the recommendation to the council.
Good luck. We are, yes. No, we are here.
Okay. Into public hearings. XZA number 15-02. Home husbandry.
Where did we leave that last meeting?
I'll tell you,
this is the famous chicken ordinance for
Yeah.
all those not keeping
Is
score.
that chickens?
yeah.
This is the chicken ordinance. As we last left it, we were some of the commissioners were curious about other towns and how they either permit or don't permit it, and other rules. So I wrote up a memo. I only looked at 5 or 6 towns, the towns that were recommended to me, and just through generic searches found 2 or 3 others. In addition, I had a conversation with the planner for New Haven, who was the planner for a long time for Wallingford, Both of those towns have chicken ordinances in place, so he was able to kind of clue me in as to what he's seen over 30 years with chickens. If you're interested, he was basically saying that there's more or less two populations that are interested in having backyard chickens. One is, the culture that comes from raising chickens in urban settings, typically Latin cultures, things like that. He says in New Haven they have a large Portuguese community that is interested. The other group would be kind of, I don't know what you'd call them, folks who are interested in being environmentally friendly and raising their own food and things like that, which is kind of a new movement happening. Now, he himself generally finds that the only problems that arise are from that latter group because they're new to it. In fact, he gets people in his office wondering, well, if I don't have a rooster, the hens won't lay eggs. Like, no, they still lay eggs. So that's when I ran through him some of our proposed things. He was surprised at our lot size and a couple other things. But that's just to give you that information. As far as permitting, the only town I found was Hampton.
Yep.
The rest, it's just a zoning ordinance, just like you would have for any, cats, dogs, things like that. You don't need a permit from the zoning authority. And there are many other towns that are more agricultural in nature. I didn't really look at their ordinance that let people keep chickens as farm animals and things, but I didn't think that was apropos. So, but just to take you back, this ordinance has been sent to CROG for review, came back with a positive recommendation. And so we're here at the public hearing phase.
Yeah, I had some.
We're waiting for
questions.
recommendation or waiting for edits.
Okay, so I know that Al brought up Suffield, and Suffield I did not see in these.
Right.
Okay.
I looked through the Suffield zoning ordinance, could find no word about chickens, poultry, backyard creatures,
I think that
things
they're
like
working on it is what his thing was.
Okay.
So we were wondering if you could talk to the planner in Suffield
I'll do that.
and find out that. But in the meantime, if you could send this whole permit section to the town attorney, because that was actually my question the last time. And I've been on this side committee for poultry for probably now 3 years. When we started this, we wanted to do a permit process, but we were told that the permits we for some reason couldn't do it. So when I found out that Hamden did it, that's why I wanted to read what the permit was. So,
Yeah, it would surprise me to find out you couldn't ask for a zoning permit if that's what you wanted to do.
right, because that's what we really wanted in the first place, because we wanted to be able to, A, track who had them, and B, have some control on what the coop was going to be like, because then we would get a plot plan and stuff like that. It was just like an extra process, just so that it wouldn't be a nuisance to neighbors.
Right.
So now that we actually have an actual permit process, can we just find out if this passes the town attorney's
Yeah, I mean,
purview?
I can tell you it most likely would if it was allowed in,
Well, don't
I don't
assume
think
that.
there's nothing.
Because there's always been some times where we think that something, like the hobby vehicle,
Right.
and then we found out that we spent all those months working on the hobby vehicle regulation, and then we found out for some reason we couldn't do that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
That's
don't
what-
know about the hobby vehicle. I just know, I can't imagine there's any legal reason why you wouldn't
so,
be able to have a permit system for
because that would be like
our chickens as a land
big
use,
thing.
accessory land use.
So and then I think if that was the case, we could add that whole little section maybe in and
I mean,
go forward with it.
Just as, playing advocate of the chicken fans, we've already set very high hurdles to having chickens with this ordinance. 25,000 square foot would be among the highest in the state that I've reviewed. And then, of course, our setbacks are very high also. Permit adds one more hurdle. So if we don't want chickens, maybe we ought to just ban them.
Well, I don't think, I think that that's the problem, is that we have them and they are just, people are doing what they want and there are no regulations. So we want them, but we want them to be
I
good
guess
regulations.
my question is, how would that change if there's no legal process for having chickens that ordinary folks who want to have chickens can have? They're going to do it illegally, I guess, and we'll have to bust them just as we do now. I don't know. This is, I don't know, gets into a philosophical point, I guess, at a certain level where you're like, okay, if we don't allow everything, people are going to do it. But I don't know.
Can I just interject for a minute? So I guess what you're asking is for us to go back to the town attorney and ask him, can we put in a permit section?
Yeah,
That's
this,
essentially what you're asking.
yes.
Okay.
And
I mean, I'm happy to
this
do
was
that just to
fine.
move it along, yeah.
Yeah, because it was all, when I actually asked
Just
the question.
understand that if we do that, it's going back to CROG.
Yeah,
Yes.
it would take another couple months.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to,
Yep.
right.
Yeah, it'd be a significant change. So it goes back to CROG for review. That's at least a month, and then we don't meet in August, I'm told.
Right.
So we're looking at the fall, probably.
Yep.
Something.
So this is a public hearing. I assume that we have to ask if anybody wants to talk?
I think so.
But I do have a question for Sean. Sean, when you're talking with these other towns and stuff, and some of the reading I've done on these chickens, and I agree with you with the latter group there that who want to become more, eating healthier, and they do when they get the chickens and they do this. What about the people that realize they can't handle these chickens or they don't know what to do with them? What are they do? I agree, it sounds that simple, but it's not.
Yeah, it
What's
isn't.
happening is the
Good
animal
question.
controls are getting chickens, and I'm sure we're not prepared to take in chickens and things like that. So,
That's a good question, and I don't know the
to
answer.
have any of the other towns, because I've actually read this in articles, so it does happen. And I imagine like people getting a dog who they get it and then realize they just can't take care of it.
Take it to the pound.
It would be the same thing with these chickens. And
Yeah.
what are they going to do with them? And I know it's well, just eat them, but I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, probably have, taken to a local farm or someone who can actually take care of
Yes,
them.
Yeah.
Or take
Or
care of them in
or
a
eat
different way. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so I would just be curious as to that if they if there was had these towns ever had any problems with them coming to the local animal shelters and that kind of stuff.
when I talked to the gentleman from New Haven, he didn't say what actually happens after.
Because
after the fact
people
of
are really
problems.
gun ho for this and everything,
Yeah.
and then it's it really is work, and it's
He was saying the problems
kids
were
and this and that. And,
yeah, it's exactly that. Like
Yeah.
getting over their head too quickly. They don't realize how much work is involved,
Yeah.
and so he never says what happens and what are the issues with decommissioning your chicken coop or
I
anything.
have read articles on
Yeah.
that, and I just curious
No.
if they've had anything like that.
And the last thing I want to say about the permitting process, the reason why that we originally started with the permitting process was, it was the way that the town would have a tracked record of who had the chickens.
Right.
Back years ago, people talked about the bird flu. People didn't know who had the chickens and how it was being passed. So if there was everybody that had chickens and something's going on in the state, there was a tracking system. That was basically the reason. It wasn't for a barrier, but it was for basically some way of knowing health-wise who had the flocks of chickens.
We'll ask the town attorney about having that.
Okay.
We'll see what they say, and we'll look up Suffield's draft ordinance. I'll talk to their planner. And then I'll talk to the guy from New Haven, since he's got the most experience about what happens to the little chickens.
And just so people know that because this is a town-sponsored public hearing, there are no time requirements, so we don't
Right.
have to worry about 65 days,
Right.
just so people know.
Okay, but it is a public hearing,
Yep.
so I have
Yes, it
to
is.
open it up. to
Yes,
the-
you do.
Yes. Is there anybody out in the audience that wishes to speak before the commission? Please come forward.
This is about chickens.
Sir,
For chickens?
you want to talk about the chickens? You have to
Okay.
come forward.
What up?
One quick comment, all it was.
And you have to state your name and your
State
address,
your
Right,
name.
please.
so we have a record of it.
Rich Carini, 8 Carroll Street, Anfield. Two comments I wanted to make. The idea of the disease-carrying birds is important if you're going to put in a regulation. We should be part of it. Someone mentioned the size of the coops, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know whether you want to include one on chickens, but I know something as small a number as falcons in the state of Connecticut comes under a DEP regulation. And DEP regulation has health considerations, sizes for the, I'm going to say coop, but it's not really a coop, but, you know, the living conditions for the birds. So if it's important enough to the state for something like a falcon, which are very few in captivity, I would think chickens that might be coming from someone's not-so-clean property to mine would also be important. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak before the commission?
What the heck? My name's Don Lord. I live on St. James Avenue. I became familiar with this a while ago when my daughter was at Suffield VOAG from town. Because she was doing studies on chickens, and they asked us to bring one home for a certain while. And we called zoning, and they said, "Do you have 3 acres?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, you can't have a chicken." And I said, "Okay." The chicken still came home. But it stayed in a cage. We didn't have a rooster, gave us eggs every morning. And I'll tell you this much, the rabbits that we have at home from the VOAG program that are legal are messier than the damn chickens. So I don't see an issue if you limit the amount of chickens that someone has on a property. Don't include roosters, so there's no noise pollution. In fact, I think it probably would surprise you how many people in this town actually have chickens on their property and haven't been found out yet. But it's a food source. It's a fresh food source. We never sold them. We ate them ourselves. And we didn't see it. We had no problems because my daughter knew how to handle the chickens. It was one at the time, but I didn't see the problem, and we were flabbergasted by the fact that we couldn't have them on our own because we lived on a small property and needed 3 acres for 1 chicken. Come on, really? But there's concerns about bird flu, but there's also concerns about all the sparrows that hang around in your yard every winter. And are we going to shoot the sparrows and shoot all the birds and take all the trees down just because we don't want chickens? I just think it's an argument that's taking too long to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak before the commission? What do we do?
Table?
We're gonna
I'll make a motion
table.
to table.
Table, okay.
Second. Okay, roll call. In favor of tabling, Elizabeth Ballard,
4.
Kathleen Sarno,
4.
Peter Falk, 4, Lori Longi,
4.
Nicholas Sefakis.
4.
Michael Ludwig.
4.
Table.
Okay. Are we going to do this one?
Yep.
Open it up.
I forget where we left the medical marijuana one.
How did
Where
we,
where did we leave it?
Sorry, I can speak to that too. The other hot topic, medical marijuana, where we left that, we were curious about states' regs, how they go about licensing medical marijuana distribution facilities and production facilities. I read through that document, 76 pages. No, and obviously I skimmed through it and found the places that really affect land use, which is what this commission's kind of in charge of. And I offered in my memo sort of samples of some of the state controls that you see. Suffice it to say, in organizations that support medical marijuana nationwide, consider Connecticut one of the most strict states because of all the ordinances that you see here. To get a license, there's a whole slew of things that the state is going to look over that you have to provide them, including your site, and they'll even do site visits and things like that to see about security and lighting and everything else. There's very specific rules about who's allowed into facilities, where within the facility they're even allowed, what has to pass over the counter, what cannot pass over the counter, labeling, packaging, signage, down to the font size. So it's very specific stuff. The question I kind of put before you guys, just reminding you and the audience that this, I don't know when this began, but from what I understand, this became kind of a priority. I don't know whether it was from the town or from town staff or from the commission. Somebody told me it was after a meeting, a dinner down at Turf Club last year, AquaTurf last year, that I guess there was a talk about medical marijuana, and so came back and wanted to kind of follow up on it. Obviously, a year later, we've got a draft ordinance in place that has been looked over by CROG, so we're at the same place as with the chickens. As to whether it's done now or later, as I said in the memo, if somebody were to come to us today with a licensed facility, which they wouldn't because all the licenses have been given out and the state has to go through a process to open up new licenses. But let's, for argument's sake, say their licenses are available and somebody came to us and wanted to put in a distribution facility or a production facility. I'd have to look through the use table and find a similar use. Is it a pharmacy? Is it a manufacturing type thing? I don't know. And really it gets bounced to you all to decide if it is a similar use or not. Does it require a special permit then? Depends on the zone, depends on the use, things like that. There's a lot of uncertainty, in other words. Knowing how much you have to invest and how you have to have a site tied down before you even go get the state license, no one's going to come into Enfield with that uncertainty.
Exactly.
So, I can't guarantee that, but in all likelihood. So the question is whether it should be done now or later. It depends on, if you feel that medical marijuana production and distribution are uses that belong in the town, that serve the town's residents, et cetera, it can't hurt to add that to the zoning code. If you feel like they don't belong and the town residents are served by having them in other towns close by, my own recommendation would be to do either just an outright ban rather than keep this uncertainty that we have now. Other towns in Connecticut have passed outright bans. Some towns have done de facto bans.
What's South Windsor? They have a dispensary? Is that
They
what
have a
called?
dispensary, and it's the other town that has a production facility. Simsbury has
Is
a production
it
facility.
one and the same, or are they two different
Two
things?
different
and two different
organizations. I don't know.
permits, or?
Two different permits, licenses from the state. I don't know if those particular ones are owned by the same people.
So a dispensary would be where you go and get it,
Right.
and a production would
Production
be where
facility is
it's
more,
grown?
yes,
or
like an
where it's
industrial use. It's got to be grown indoors.
grown and packaged,
Yes.
Okay.
Grown, packaged, made into various,
and then off to the
sent over to
whatever they're called,
yeah,
dispensary. Or
dispensary.
Yeah.
Which is more or less like a pharmacy. You have to
Okay.
you have
So
to
they're-
have a prescription and a registration with the state to even enter the building as a
Okay.
patient.
So South Windsor is just a dispensary. There's no production
Correct, yeah.
in South Windsor. Okay.
Now, the idea is, the state's had, I think 6 licenses for each open. I believe they're all given out right now. They're going to see if that serves all the needs of Connecticut. But if you look at all the articles, and I think I sent you some, there's been a growing number of people able to get it. There's been a growing number of diseases and conditions that the state has allowed to give medical marijuana to. And a growing number of doctors prescribing it. So in all likelihood, the state will have additional licenses to give out at some point. So
Or just legal.
does it have to be done today as far as getting our zoning ducks in order? No, but,
Yeah.
Obviously, if we want them, we should get some zoning in order just to decrease the uncertainty. If we don't want them, we should
I
also
think
maybe
we
do a
should.
ban.
I'm not sure about the ban myself, but there's 7 of us. But, and we should
Yeah.
either have ordinances or ban it, one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as legality of bans, like I said, I know there's a couple towns. Most towns right now have done where you hold off for 6 months or a year. Moratorium. Thank you. Moratorium. In fact, I think all of Litchfield County has moratoriums in place. Some towns have outright banned it, and other towns have done de facto bans, such as requiring it only be dispensed through a national chain pharmacy, which no national chain is going to do because of various federal laws, et cetera. That's a de facto ban. So it hasn't gone to the courts yet as to whether that's legal to do. And the other issue I forgot before is whether the town, I know Mr. Drinen had asked about this, whether the town or the commission or anybody could face any kind of prosecution over, legalizing a use that's illegal under federal law. And I don't know if I threw it in here or emailed it. We asked the town attorney, and they said that the state basically has made it legal. If the federal government would take up the issue there, and as long as this commission isn't actually distributing or handling or producing the marijuana, you're safe.
So what does the moratorium buy you?
Whatever the length of time is that nobody could come into the town and ask for that use.
That allows us to continue. Can we continue to discuss?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's typically why a moratorium is put in place, is to discuss it, get zoning together if you want to have it, or a ban or something like that. So
Right.
maybe that's something to do just in case.
Yeah,
I mean, in all likelihood, with all the licenses given out, it's not like a priority. I think if, tomorrow Connecticut announces that there's going to be 6 new licenses, probably want to get a moratorium if you're not sure about it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not suggesting a moratorium, but I think at least understanding, and I don't want to be naive and say I understand the issue when someone feels they need to have a prescription for it. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand that. And
Yeah.
I understand someone probably really does need it. So I don't want to sit here and say I'm against her, but I think it's at least worth discussing in an open forum if we feel it's valuable for the town of Enfield with all the facilities that we have for the hospital facilities in town.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't want to come out for or against, but I think it makes sense to talk about it. I mean, it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's grown over the years. I think California was the first to pass medical marijuana.
I
Now
think
we're
it's just gonna
24
get bigger.
states, and 24 states have medical
Yeah,
marijuana.
it's gonna
9
get
have
bigger and-
legislation pending. 4 states have legal recreational.
Research is going to continue. It seems just
Yeah.
on the articles you read that the research will, by science or by doctors, whoever, that maybe this is something.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I don't think we can dismiss it. Just my opinion.
Yep.
really. That's why I say it's a land use issue. That's why it's before the commission, whether we allow these things by zoning or don't allow them by
Right.
zoning. So at the end of the day.
I guess we can open it up and then
Yeah.
just table it at that point to figure out what's going on with it.
And just for historical context, just that the issue was brought up by the commission. I mean, this didn't come from the public, it didn't come from town hall, it did come from commission members
It came from that meeting that,
at the
AquaTurf.
AquaTurf.
yeah.
Well, I give the commission credit for having. I mean, to look forward. I think it's a good idea
Yeah.
to look forward, even though we don't have that issue currently in town.
Right.
Public discussion,
Do it.
public
Ask
comment.
If anybody in the public.
Yes, does anybody from the public wish to speak for or against? Second time round, does anybody wish to speak for or against? Third time, for or against? All right, then we're,
I'll make a motion to table to future time.
Second, roll call, Elizabeth Ballard,
for.
Kathleen Sarno.
4.
Peter Falk, 4, Lori Longi.
4.
Nicholas Fakis.
4.
Michael Ludwig.
4.
Table.
Could I have the reading of the legal notice?
Sure. Okay, 2819. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings on Thursday, May 21st, 2015, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2819, petition for a zoning text change to reduce the distance requirements from 2,000 feet to 1,000 feet for uses regulated under 5.30A and create additional requirements for such uses. Enfield Properties LLC is the applicant, and this notice was published in the Journal Enquirer on May 9th, 2015, and May 14th, 2015. Roll call. Charles Dern, absent. Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Kathleen Sarno.
Here.
Peter Falk here. Lori Longi.
Here.
Nicholas Sefakis.
Here.
Charles Ladd, absent. Alan Drynan, absent. Michael Ludwig.
Here.
The applicant come forward and
Okay.
give your pitch.
Chairman Ballard, before the hearing starts, I just want to go on the record that this had to do with a garage and a dealership. And I do have a dealership as well. There is no conflict or anything, but I just have some knowledge about dealerships, so I just want to go on the record and make that statement.
If I may proceed, Madam Chairman. Good evening. My name, I don't know if the microphone's picking me up. I guess I got to
Red
lower it a
light
little bit.
should be on.
It is.
It is?
It is.
Thank you. That's, thank you, Sean. Again, good evening. My name is Attorney Paul Smith. I represent the applicant on Public Hearing 2819. And just for the record, it's the same applicant on 2820, and the reason I mention that is both those applications are sort of intertwined. So in terms of presentation tonight, we're going to sort of deal with both at this hearing, and our comments and our exhibits, our evidence that we present, and any comments from staff or comments from the public or whoever, as far as we're concerned, can also be applied to 2820, so that we don't have to do, two lengthy hearings. It makes no sense. I think most people here in the audience probably want to specifically comment on 2820. So we're going to do, whether they comment at this hearing or the next isn't particularly important to us. But I think it's important for coherence sake that we sort of take it as one, if you will. So I appreciate that indulgence, and please note that for the record that, again, we have no objection to whatever's said on this public hearing to apply it to the next, use that evidence as if it were presented at that hearing.
Do you want me to read the public hearing notice for the other one, and we'll do them all together?
That's fine. That would be excellent.
We'll sit tight, and I'll read that one, too. The Enfield, in addition to 2819, we're going to include 2820. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings on Thursday, May 21st, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2820, petition for a zoning map change to Business General BG from Residential District 33, R33. The following locations: 143 Elm Street, map 57, lot 112, 145 Elm Street, map 53, lot 113, portion of 147 Elm Street, map 57, lot 114, a portion of 149 Elm Street, map 57, lot 115, 153 Elm Street, map 57, lot 116, and a portion of the property located on Carroll Street, map 57, lot 72. Enfield Properties LLC applicant, and that notice again was published in the Journal Enquirer on May 9th, 2015, and May 14th, 2015. Thank you. Go ahead.
And roll call has been called for that.
Chair, I have a question for the chair. And there's I'm a little confused, and I just want to make sure that I understand everything. We're going to be discussing both these public hearings at once, and
Yeah, I mean, if
am I to understand, though, that B wouldn't even be discussed if A wasn't approved, or, I mean...
I'll let the applicant answer that, whether they need both.
Yeah, contextually, we've asked for the text changes as part of our plan, so it's important, obviously, that be dealt with, and it makes no sense to sort of deal with it separate from the zone change application. It just makes no sense for us. Obviously, the applicant would have, if you acted on A, we could tell you whether we're going to go forward with the second one or not. In other words, if you call that B, we can then make that decision whether, we could certainly go forward, but we think contextually, because we're talking about this site and the text change really is for this, for what we want to do on the site, it doesn't make any sense to take them sort of in a vacuum.
Okay.
And that's why we're not trying to prevent you from having a second hearing on the B if you want, certainly to answer any questions or more public comment. So we're not trying to shorten the process in that way or exclude anybody from having their say on that application. But we just think, as a comprehensive thing, it's easier to talk about both at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
With that, again, Attorney Paul Smith, I represent the applicant, who is Enfield Properties LLC on both applications. To my left is Frank Troiano, who is the owner and principal of the applicant, Enfield Properties LLC. To my right is Dave Ziax, who's an engineer from F.A. Hesketh Associates, who is the engineer on this project, and here to answer questions also. With regard to these applications, basically what you have in front of you is, on the map that's to my left, this is what we call the Bissonette properties, and the reason we do that is the Bissonette family, either through their corporation or personally, own all the parcels that form the 16 plus or minus acres that you see outlined on the map. Correct. And with regard to the project, what we are proposing basically is 8+ of the acres with the frontage on Elm Street be rezoned to a BG, and that the rear portion, which is a little less than 8 acres, remain as R33. Currently, the entire parcel is zoned as an R33 parcel. And I think you're all fairly well familiar with its location. It's located on Elm Street. It's actually across from Palumba Drive. So on the other side of the street, in that area, you've got that those fairly intense commercial uses, the car dealership, and so forth. Obviously, again, as the commission is very well aware, Elm Street in this area is an extremely heavily trafficked road. We did submit, and I don't know if we need to distribute copies, Sean, of our preliminary traffic report, but there's about 28,000 cars that use Elm Street on any given day. And with regard to that, our vision for the parcel basically is to use the half of the parcel that's on Elm Street for commercial purposes and allow the rear to remain, again, as residential. This parcel actually has a bit of a history before the Planning and Zoning Commission. With regard to its own history, I believe at one point it was farmland or used for farming. It has lain basically vacant for many, many years. I think the Bissonettes themselves have owned it for more than 4 generations, so it's remained in their family. They have, over, I think, a last number of years, at various times, approached the town with the idea of doing something to develop this parcel. They had, the vision has been to use the front area, at least the front area, if not the entire parcel, for commercial purposes. And I would note to a certain degree that, that vision is actually shared by the town. And what I mean by that is one of the things the town manager's office does is put out a bulletin, if you will, of all available commercial properties in town. And the Bissonette properties are included in that bulletin as something that they want developers to look at in terms of commercial development. So even the town has sort of recognized that given this piece's location in a heavily commercialized corridor, that there is some sense in terms of appropriate development that it be used for commercial purposes. The proposal which you see before you basically is a little bit different than what you've had in the past. In the past, you've had people come in and at least preliminarily suggest to you that they want to rezone the entire parcel to BG, and then from there put in some sort of big box retail or large box retail The last attempt was in 2012 when you had a preliminary meeting with some people called Galaxy. It's part of your record. They had proposed a 70,000 square foot big box retail, rezoning the parcel basically as business. And that wasn't well received by the commission. And really what I think the commission was looking for is some commercial use, but reduced in a way sensitive to the fact that, you know, we all have to acknowledge it's R33. It's surrounded by homes on each side and in the rear parcel and in the rear part. And so we think what Mr. Troiano has come up with is a fairly good proposal that is sensitive to the residents in the area, but again recognizes the fact that given this parcel's location and its size, that it, to a certain degree, it needs to be developed, at least in the front, for commercial purposes. Residences in that area just really won't work materially, given what there is for traffic and surrounding uses in the area. And with regard to that, our proposal actually, if we can go to the second one, Sean, I think there's one behind it. Yes, thank you. And basically what you see there is just the commercial area and our vision of what's going to happen. And with regard to the uses, let me grab one of the portable mics. Does that still work? Am I still good?
I don't think
Yes,
so.
thank you. Just briefly, we already have commitments with a financial institution to locate a bank on this, with this purple block. We also have commitments here to locate basically a convenience store with a gas station facility. And we have commitments back here for basically what would be a private daycare sort of learning center. And all our tenants for these locations are basically either national tenants or large regional tenants that are interested in coming onto the site. We think, and what that leaves basically is these three buildings or four buildings, which we're simply showing as possibilities. They might be tweaked. We are in discussions with branded restaurants with regard to this site, but we have no commitments. All of the parties that have made commitments, obviously, at this point want to be confidential. That's sort of part of how these things go forward. If we ever get to a site plan or special use portion after a rezone, then obviously we can give you much more complete detail as to who these people are and what their intents are. Although I think David, when he speaks, would say that those buildings, as we've cited them for those three, are fairly close to where we're going to end up in terms of a plan. So basically, ultimately, what you see in front of you is about 30,000 square feet of retail located on a number of pad sites. It's sort of a campus, softer approach than sort of a strip mall or, sort of a large box retail kind of thing. So we think it works fairly well. And I would note that the use that we're proposing in the back, which is the sort of daycare / private learning center, is really a use that you would consider in any residential as well as commercial zone. So, again, it's we think a good soft approach to the site. The other thing I would note is we are not intending to use the Carroll Street property, which we own. I'll cite it for you right there. Thank you, Sean. For access to the commercial property or for any other purpose. It's going to be used solely, I would think, and that would really be up to the town if we needed to access sewer, because there's been discussions about whether we access the Elm Street sewer line or the Carroll sewer line. And the town thinks it might be more beneficial for us to access the Carroll sewer line for flow purposes, so that they get more flow into that line. But other than that, it's going to be a dead piece. It's not going to be used for access, no vehicular traffic or anything like that. Ultimately, what we do with it is we may see if, frankly, if property owners to the left or the right of it are interested in taking it over, taking title to it or something, because, they can maintain it a lot easier than we might be able to. So that, and with regard to Elm Street, there's going to really be the principal access in and out will be across from Paloma Drive. We're going to make improvements to the traffic light there. We'll have to meet with DOT and work out the details for that. But basically, that's probably the only curb cut they would allow. Perhaps maybe, David, a right turn in or something like that for purposes of convenience. But in terms of ingress and egress, it's all going to be controlled at that light. So again, the reason for that obviously is in terms of traffic, minimal impact on the people who live on the side streets, St. James, Carroll, and so forth, because it's all funneled onto and through that light onto Elm Street. So we tried to do it, the traffic in a way that, again, minimally impacts, the residents surrounding it. With regard to traffic, we have submitted a preliminary traffic report, which I can distribute if you want, Sean. We brought plenty of
Yeah, it was brought in today, if you're interested.
Or we
Well,
can.
I was going to say, or you can discuss the findings from it. It's probably
Yeah,
the most
I'll
important.
have Dave briefly maybe talk about that, but ultimately the findings are that there's going to be minimal impact, certainly no impact to the residences, and really minimal impact to even Elm Street itself. It's a very highly traveled road at this point with almost 28,000 vehicular trips per day. So this site, in terms of that, would have minimal impact. And then, of course, it's all controlled by a traffic light so that, ingress and egress is not going to be an issue. People aren't going to be pulling out into sort of traffic. How do you get across? How do you take a left? How do you take a right? So it works in that sense. When we looked at this, the discussion that you always see with a zone change is what's the highest and best use of the property and so forth. This certainly calls for, again, because of its location in this very intense commercial corridor, calls for some commercial use. What we tried to do is soften the approach that the commission has seen in the past by devoting about half the property to either basically dead space or residential space. And I think that's sort of outlined very well, actually, in Sean's report, where you see the middle of our parcel is basically conservation area. We did leave the back rear potentially for 4 or 5 lots. Is that shown? That's shown on the other one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, it's on the master plan.
Yeah, that one, Sean. You can, yeah, you can see that on the master plan. Now, that's Mr. Triano is not a residential developer, so his interest there is obviously, to show you what potentially can happen. We're not looking for that approval at this point. It's just a small extension of the existing road there, and again, a few fairly large lots. So that sort of is an overview of the, if you will, the zone change plan and why we want the zone change and what the impact is. Let me talk a little bit about the text change. Currently under your regulation, which is 5.30.1, you have a 2,000 foot requirement for distance between gas stations, general repair operations, and parking garages. What we have suggested is, and we think it doesn't impact the intent of your regulation, is to reduce that to 1,000 feet. And basically, our intent there is we are within 1,400 feet of a gas station on Elm Street. I believe it's the Mobile, correct? And so it would bring us obviously in compliance. The zone change would bring us in compliance. But if you look at it in a global sense, and actually it's set forth in the planner's report, is with those kind of long distances required between stations, what you tend to get is sort of a monopoly effect in the sense that nobody can remotely be close to you with another gas station. So you tend to have a bit of a price issue. We looked at all the stations in Enfield, and actually what's interesting to see is over the last few years, a number of stations have actually closed. And part of that is gasoline in and of itself as a station doesn't really work very well. Gasoline only works if you have sort of a use attached to it. The one we have here, again, with a very large chain, is a convenience store, gas station operation. And so for them, gas to a certain degree is a loss leader to maintain their convenience store. That's not uncommon. Again, we don't think the change that we're proposing in any way creates a problem where you're going to get a concentration of gas stations in one area. One of the reasons we see in other towns that they may have some limitation on distances between gas stations is sort of to avoid that idea that you might get, gas station, you have 4 corners and you get a gas station on each corner, which is, again, commercially is probably not desirable to have a sort of that kind of use surrounding one corner. The 1,000-foot distance that we suggest certainly would prevent that sort of concentration. The other thing in our proposal was that the commission, as part of any special use permit, when they approve the gas station, would have to look at whether they think in their own viewpoint that there is an excessive concentration of these uses in a particular area, so that the commission isn't necessarily bound by the 1,000-foot prescription. It could say, what, we're not comfortable, there's too many of the uses within the area, and therefore we're not supportive of it. And that would be part of a special use permit process, which we would be subject to when we went forward. When we submitted a final site plan, it would really be a site plan special use permit plan, because the gas station would require a special use permit. I'm not sure if any of the other ones would require it, but I know the gas station would. Also, with regard to the text change, I did want to address, and I was aware of some of these things that we had discussed them. The planner's report, and again, I'm not trying to steal his thunder, but if I can anticipate some of the discussion, it may just accelerate it. We looked at 2 issues. One was, how does this impact? I mean, is Nuntuk because there's a prohibition in your regulations that you don't want to be within 1,000 feet of what you call a public or parochial school, and Nuntuk is within 800-900 feet of this facility if it were approved. We didn't look, we looked at the definitions of what a public or parochial school is. We don't think Nuntuk falls within that category, and the reason for that, and let me explain. Nuntuk is a state college, so it's a state community college. Is it a public school? Public schools generally, or parochial schools, are generally defined as primary or secondary schools operated by either a county or municipality, which are free, meaning whoever goes there You basically, like the town of Enfield, you have a public school. You can't exclude anybody that's a resident of the town from sending their kids there. It's a free education, and that's generally what's meant by public school. I mean, if we need an elongated discussion of that, I'm happy to share it. But that seems to make good sense. The other sort of really interesting issue raised in the report, and something we've looked at sort of at great length, is the issue of motor vehicle repair garages. Because the 2,000-foot prohibition that you have in your regulation, not only does it apply to service stations, gas service stations, but it applies to general repair garages. And if you look at Palumba Drive, you have, on one side, you have all of the car dealerships. I bought cars from there. I'm sure everybody has. There's that whole line of dealerships that go up and down Palumba Drive. And of course, each one of those dealerships maintains as part of its facility a repair garage. And not only is it generally a repair garage, it's a full service repair garage. They virtually can do anything to your car that you want. You want to replace the engine, you want to replace the transmission. So they do sort of real general repair work. It's hard for me, looking at the regs and sort of looking through some of your minutes, to understand the vision, except to say it seems to me the commission has sort of consistently said that those uses are accessory to the car dealership. In other words, it's not the principal use of the property, it's just an accessory use to the dealership. And therefore, you didn't apply the 2,000-foot prohibition to their operations, because if you did, you'd only have one car dealership on Palumba Drive. On the opposite side of Palumba Drive, you have Town Fair Tire, you have Midas Muffler, and down further at 33, you have Firestone. They all are specialized kind of car service people. Firestone does tires, Midas obviously is basic business is mufflers and brakes, thank you. But they also, to a certain degree, advertise that they'll do some repair work. And Firestone the same way. Their main service is tires, but they also advertise they can do some more light repair work. Again, under the existing 5.30.1, and I've, again, read through some minutes, it's hard to see how you applied that to those. You certainly didn't consider them general repair garages. It seems to me you interpret those to be specialized repair, and I think Town Fair is fairly recent, if I remember.
In the last year.
That's not like 20 years or 30 years ago. So, consistent with how you've interpreted your regulation, I would say the distance prohibition of 1,000 feet for our convenience store from Town Fair Tire, which it's within 1,000 feet of Town Fair, and it's within 1,000 feet of Midas. Given how you've interpreted the regulations, I don't think we're violating it. If you felt that somehow you missed that, misapplied that, our suggestion is, and I've sent to Sean, an additional modification that allows you to tweak that a little bit so that what you're trying to prevent is an accumulation of similar uses. In other words, gas stations. Obviously, the accumulation of sort of repair services within that area doesn't seem to be a bad thing. I mean, they're all well-maintained properties. They seem to economically be doing well. You haven't created sort of an economic distress by it. So, I mean, it seems to work. I'm not criticizing that. It was just hard to know how you fit it in when you looked at it. And again, it may not have been sort of raised in that context. So that's certainly something to think about. And finally, with regard to the textual change, again, we didn't see the reduction of distance as creating the potential for a lot of new gas stations in town. It still keeps it within the umbrella of a special use permit. It still gives you power to decline to have a gas station based on the fact that you think there's an excessive concentration of sort of motor vehicle uses, we added that language. I am going to turn it over to Dave Zayak for two reasons, actually. He'll give you a little maybe better overview of the site as we've proposed it. And the other thing, I think to a degree, Dave was actually involved in some of the prior applications, and he can maybe speak to that a little bit and his thoughts that came from those meetings. Appreciate it. Thank you, Dave. That over.
Good evening. My name is Dave Zayax. I'm a professional engineer with F.A. Hesketh Associates, and I'm happy to be back here this evening. I haven't been here in a little while since things are just starting to come back in the economy and development, so you probably will see me more frequently. But as Paul pointed out, over the years, this parcel of land has been of great interest to lots of developers, mainly that have not don't have their home base in Enfield. They work on shopping centers and they work with big box development and things of that nature. It's been very attractive from that perspective. And they've come in and talked to staff over the years and talked to the commission in various capacities. And I think it's been well documented that the commission basically has been somewhat open-minded to potential commercial development along the Elm Street portion of the site, but really strongly made it clear to everyone that they really weren't interested in opening this property up to high-intensity, big box kind of development, that wasn't appropriate on this piece. So that's sort of the history of it. Some of the members here I know have heard some initial presentations, preliminary presentations from others regarding that, but that's basically the history. There's no secret there. And really, because of the the overall development, this is one of the most successful retail corridors, and certainly in Connecticut, probably in southern New England. I've worked on many projects in this area. I'm very familiar with all of the traffic considerations, drainage, utility considerations, and things to develop the properties and redevelop the properties over the years. And what makes this attractive is the fact that you have access to a traffic light at Plummet Drive. It does have some limitations right now. It needs some improvements, but that's things that we work on all the time. And given the size of the project that would come before you, it's going to require a certificate issued by the Office of State Traffic Administration, OSTA, which used to be STC. It will be thoroughly reviewed by your own traffic folks here in town and by the state's experts, and the appropriate modifications will be made to the traffic light and maybe some lane modifications to make sure that, if anything, there's a better level of service than there is there presently at that intersection now. So from an overall traffic perspective as it relates to the commercial portion of this thing, that all can be worked out, and it will be worked out, and nothing will happen on this property until both your traffic safety people, this commission, and the State Traffic Commission are satisfied that it can happen in a safe manner. As far as the north portion goes, that would be developed as we've shown. This is just a concept plan. What would you put there if you just stay with R33, straight R33, and extend Montclair Drive into the site, build a cul-de-sac to town standards? There's presently not a cul-de-sac at the end of that road to town standards. But if you were to do that, you'd end up probably with 5 lots, and that would be at the rest of the property. In the middle would be either conservation area or open space, depending upon how the commission wanted to treat that at that time. So that's the general flow of this thing. So when Frank approached us and said, what would you think as far as a master plan for this commercial portion, we, of course, have worked in many areas where there's typical types of corridors, such as Elm Street, be it Route 44 up through the valley, Avon, Simsbury, things of that nature. This type of mixed-use, low-intensity type of development is very popular in many other towns. Matter of fact, it's encouraged over conventional strip centers or big box type of development. This is really the flow of the way development is infill, what I call infill development on remaining parcels is taking place all around the state. And what the benefit of this is when they bring this to you is you'll have a comprehensive plan where all of the details, the landscaping, the architecture, the access, buffer control, things of that will all be brought to the commission, and you can approve it as one unified plan rather than, say, 3 or 4 individual uses along Elm Street that might come along that, quite frankly, would want their own driveways, would not necessarily be a comprehensive plan where everything's coordinated in a proper fashion. This is an opportunity to develop this parcel in that way. It'll be a special permit because there's going to be, if Frank were to move forward with it, it's going to have hopefully a gas component to it, and the child care center is a special permit as well, be it whether it's in the residential zone or the commercial zone. So there's 2 special permits necessary. So the commission will have, complete discretion in reviewing that and reviewing the potential impacts and whether or not they're appropriate. So there's lots of control in your hands in those matters. So that's why we've been looking at this thing purely from a mixed-use perspective. What would be successful here long-term, rather than relying on one use that may or may not succeed in a long period of time, because, as we know, retail and other uses can be faddish, and you can end up with empty boxes from time to time. Whereas in a mixed-use situation, you have a healthier economic environment for the project in the long term. And we all travel around the state and elsewhere. We all know, I think, what I'm talking about as far as these nice mixed-use types developments. And you can see all around the state they're extremely successful, and when they're done the proper way, they're very attractive. There is water or sewer available to the site. That's not an issue. Drainage. Surprisingly, this site has very little wetlands on it. We've had it flagged. That would be, of course, a completely different application. It is part of the watershed for Great Brook, which is to the north. The brook leaves the property. It actually sort of originates, tributaries originate at this parcel. There's a small farm pond, remains of a farm pond on this site. Travels to the north and goes up through the open space that's part of the Montclair subdivision. And eventually gets over to Great Brook, and then obviously over towards the Connecticut River watershed. We would have the proper storm drainage control. We'll probably end up with a fairly large stormwater pond in addition to the farm pond. And of course, that would have to be all worked out with your engineering department and with the Wetlands Commission to make sure that's appropriate, but we feel it's technically feasible. And then, of course, all the other utilities are all readily available on Elm Street. That's really not a consideration as far as worrying about increasing the density on the property. So all in all, from a technical perspective, we feel very strongly we can successfully make everything work as far as general utilities, access. We've initiated discussions with the state DOT on the traffic. We've issued some technical information to them. We will be having an informal meeting with them in the next couple of weeks to talk about things in general and where we might go if an application is put together before them. So that will be an ongoing process which the town will be involved in at that time. But all in all, I can say to you, as reporting a little bit from the outside, is that this is really the trend in development going on now in the state. It's greatly promoted by the regional planning agencies to look at these types of mixed-use types of development, and particularly what I call the infill parcels. What's left and what's appropriate to put on the parcels that are left. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, John.
Dave, any comment on the preliminary traffic report that you all prepared on?
Yeah, well, we view, as Paul stated, the state's traffic counts is close to 29,000 vehicles per day on the east of Freshwater Boulevard. This type of, while this thing, if you add up all the individual uses, you can generate a fair amount of traffic trips in and out of this facility, particularly with the convenience items. But really, the focus of this type of development is to capture the pass-by traffic on Elm Street that's already there. I think the type of developments that you're looking at, people aren't going to travel very far to go to a small bank, that aren't already on the road. Obviously, the gasoline and convenience component of this thing is purely there to capture the traffic that's already on Elm Street. You're not going to travel very far, particularly with the Massachusetts factor and the pricing effects of that. And then, things such as a local restaurant. Obviously, there's plenty of restaurants in town. The restaurants are popular here. This would be another one. But again, that's capturing shoppers in the area that are already, over at the mall or Home Depot or whatever, and they're going to want to use a family-style, restaurant while they're here. You're not going to travel from 3 towns away to go to one of the restaurants here in Enfield. That's not the way traffic travels in this area. So this type of development really is geared towards capturing traffic that's already on the roadway system. It's not going to generate lots of new traffic, like, for instance, maybe a Home Depot where you might come from 3 towns away to go to Home Depot. This type of development is really geared to capturing a portion of that 29,000 cars that's already on the road. So it's a good use. The state won't give us as much credit for that. You'll see if we come in with a real traffic study, you'll see there's a lot. It'll demonstrate a lot of new traffic on the road, but the reality of the situation is that's their protocol. They never give us enough credit for pass-by traffic by their standards. They're very conservative in that manner, so you tend to generate much larger traffic counts than you're really going to see with this type of development. But that's really what this is geared toward. This is geared to capture the traffic that's already on the road.
I'd like to make a disclosure that earlier there was a reference to Asnuntuck Community College. I want to disclose that I'm an employee there, but my concern is not regarding the college, but more for the residents around it. So if folks feel...
Yeah, we don't see it as a problem.
Okay.
We don't.
Oh, can we?
No, we don't see
we
you
ask
sitting
questions?
as a problem.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Right. The zone change.
Can we ask question?
Because they're going to be all over this gas station
Right.
thing, and that's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
So
And about the 2 different zones.
So with the so the traffic study, I know it's not the full study, but I know, having lived in the area, when we try to take a left out of St. Thomas, which I think was on your earlier. It's very difficult to make that turn. That was even before you added, and again, not your concern, before Five Guys is there. I can just say, having played soccer, my daughter playing soccer at Asnuntuck, and when folks come, the issue, I guess, the concern when you add now another 4-way stop there, the left out of St. Thomas, which I'm sure the state will go through, but also folks, when they could pull into Five Guys, they sit right on that little, whatever it is, the little island there, that man-made island, and folks coming left out of there, actually trying to squeeze out, makes it pretty dangerous. So I guess my concern on the traffic study, once we get the full study, obviously no matter what you put there, again, I think it's a well thought out idea. I'm just saying, from the traffic issue, I think is going to be a big concern, only because I know personally about the St. Thomas trying to get out of there, and again, knowing what the Five Guys issue is. So I guess my point is, I think the state, other than, I'm not talking about how much traffic it will generate, just think, again, knowing where that is, you add a 4-way kind of entry there, it's a tough spot. That's all I'm saying. So I'm not questioning I'm just saying, if you actually seen someone kind of pull out of their left, it's tough.
Okay.
And so, again, I know not your issue, I'm just saying that would be one of my main concerns, so I
Right.
don't want to put you on the spot.
I guess our
This is gonna
impression
get way out of
generally is
control.
what we're proposing won't hurt that or really help it. Is that a fair way to sort of characterize it, Dave?
Again, we're all, if you've worked in this area and, have done the studies in these areas, we're all very sensitive to the fact that there's some real hot spots around. One of the beauties of this type of development, again, is you get a centralized access at a controlled traffic light and not new driveways, because quite frankly, new development that takes place along this roadway and some of the other roads in town, the state is getting tougher and tougher on this right turn in, right turn out things. And quite frankly, there's a lot of debate throughout everywhere at all levels as to whether that really is benefiting anything or creating more dangerous situations. Because I mean, quite frankly, I've been to the Five Guys myself.
Right.
You know, and the temptation is to take that left-hand turn at times. Okay?
Fair, that's a very fair point, 'cause I think
people
you've seen-
I see people go across the street to the
Right.
shopping center and use that to make a U-turn to come back on the road.
Very, very fair point.
So we understand those things.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm emphasizing that, obviously, there's going to have to be improvements made in front of this property to handle the traffic the proper way at the traffic light. But that this type of development, which is convenience-oriented, is really geared towards, in all honesty, capturing traffic that's already on the road and not introducing new traffic onto the road from outside destinations beyond, the immediate area. So I think it's a fair statement to say that that this type of development is not going to exacerbate the issues that are out there. It might actually help with some of the issues at Palumba, because right now you have a de facto left turn lane going westbound on Elm Street to turn south onto Palumba. That is not a designated left turn lane right now. And, folks have learned over the years in this area to just make it a de facto left turn lane. If you're from this area, you move to the right, you don't get stuck in that lane. I think you'll see some improvements there that are going to improve upon that situation and make it a little less de facto than it is. But again, I don't want to get into a lot of those technicalities. All I can assure you is that there will be lots of discussions about that later, that I really think it's a policy decision and land use decision that you folks should consider. And, we'll sweat out all the technicalities later under the special permit application.
Just question for Sean. So at one point, that property, I remember when I was a kid, there was horses there, and I believe there was a flower.
Buttons.
Buttons. So has that always been R33?
As far as my recollection, I looked back at least to 1984, and it was R33.
R17.
R17 before that, yeah.
I have a question, and you people have been on the commission longer than I, but there was some discussion about a particular type of zone, a transition zone in that
Limited
particular
office.
area.
Limited office.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of that was ever approved. I know we did the, up the street, the State
State
Farm
Farm,
dealer.
right.
But that was, a very localized area. But were there any other sections in there that got that
Yes,
particular
there are
zone?
there are some limited office.
The
on-
transition zone.
It was a transition zone for that side of Elm Street.
Yeah. And what sort of things were allowed in that zone, do you recall?
It was office, it was a low-intensive area. I'll actually look up the zone for you.
I only ask it as a comparison to what's being proposed in this particular zone and how the two of them might compare with each other.
And we can speak about, well, the attorney's already mentioned, for this parcel itself, obviously this is the last large site in the area, and so now this is at least the third proposal to make a commercial use out of it.
Right.
And previous versions, looking through the minutes, a lot of folks were concerned about rezoning the whole entire site as a commercial use. And what would that do to access to the residential neighborhoods? So, when these gentlemen brought this proposal to us, we said that this was far better than what we had seen prior.
I have it, Lori, if you want me to read it. It's 5.7. Special requirements pertaining to the limited office.
So there's some in that area that is
Yes.
for that, yeah.
So that section was basically designated, the purpose of the limited office district is to create a special district which serves as a transitional area between the residentially zoned properties and the non-residential uses in the zoning districts and/or less desirable conditions such as the state highway, traffic generators, business industrial uses, and similar uses. The limited office district provides a means of using existing residential buildings for non-residential use or encouraging the development of the new buildings while attempting to maintain the quality of the existing residential uses and the zoning which may be adjacent and encourages the maintenance of the New England character throughout the area. And then there's 4 more standards and stuff.
Okay,
They
thank
had
you.
specific hours, business hours, 8 to 8, things about lighting, et cetera. And it's in pages 58 and 59 of our zoning books. Just
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Looking through that in the minutes, it kind of feeds onto that about the idea is to create a, because of all the pressure along the highway for commercial uses, there needs to be some sort of softer uses going back into the residential neighborhoods. Limited office, it doesn't, in its use in this town has been more of almost an overlay district where folks come in and propose a project and it gets rezoned as opposed to a full district, zoning district thrown onto the road. But you can see what the intent is behind it.
Okay. I think I would prefer to save my comments. I would rather have the public be able to comment. That's just my own opinion, but
I just want to make sure that the public understands that this is for a zoning change and not a gas station application.
Yeah.
And that's what they're here for, is for a zone change. They're not presenting an application to us. And I can hear in the background, in the audience, them talking about gas stations. It's not for a gas station. It's not for a gas station. But this is for a zone change. So the public.
You're correct, yeah.
I mean, we're welcome
I'd be happy
listening
to
to public,
reiterate
but
that
it's
for folks.
for a zone
Yeah.
change, not a gas station
Yeah,
application.
just so everybody is aware, the question really before the commission tonight is should part of this site be rezoned for commercial uses? Now,
Sean,
obviously the applicants
before you go
have
farther,
a proposal, but
there's actually 2 applications.
I was gonna
And
say
so
the
I
second
think
one.
we have to be very clear. The first is for the zone change to reduce the distance requirements for a gas station.
Right.
So there is information here regarding the gas stations. We don't want to mislead the public. The requirements were for 2,000 feet to 1,000 feet for uses under this section of 5.30A and create additional requirements for such uses. So there are 2
Right.
areas.
So
So
why aren't we looking at 2 separate things then?
well,
because they
you are
asked us to
it's-
combine them.
It's easier
can do it
to
either
do it
way.
as, I
Yeah.
just think it's easier to hear it all.
I disagree, because I
well-
think
Yeah.
you're going to, it's going to get too involved in the application and not the, okay.
Well, if you disagree, then you should hash that out amongst yourselves, how you want to hear it.
I mean, it's certainly happy to do a separate hearing on the next one and give you the information again.
Well, the thing is, if we don't approve the 1,000 feet, then you're not going to get to B. Am I misunderstanding that?
There's
Or-
some question as to that
or
too.
is that,
There's some question as to that too, because they might have other ideas, first of all.
Right.
And then secondly, if you look at the gas stations that are around there, Costco, Stop and Shop, and the former one at Middle Road and Elm, all within 1,000 feet of each other, yet somehow are approved. I think if it's been cited as an accessory use, then we've allowed it to go within 2,000 feet.
okay.
These gentlemen might come back and say this is an accessory use to their convenience store and might not need a zone change. I think they're just being a little more forthright by going for a zone change.
We're not trying to hide, we don't want the public or the commission to sort of, we're not trying to hide anything. Our intent, as I said at the initial presentation, is we have entered into commitments for a convenience store with gas service. That's real, and you take it for what it is, good or bad, and willing to hear the commission and the public on that issue. So, not trying to hide that. We're not trying to turn it into a special use process, but we want to be forthright where we're driving this, okay? Sometimes the preference is you bring in not just the zone change, but you also bring in the actual, master plan. But that's an enormous expense. So we need to know where we're headed. And there is some risk intended with that, because you do have the power under the special use to say, yeah, we don't think it's a good idea. We're happy with the BG zone, but we're not really happy with the special use you want there because it doesn't meet the criteria. So we're not trying to hide that. We want to be forthright with you. We want to be forthright with the public. We appreciate everything staff has done because they've been very forthright with us and very easy to work with. And we think we've reciprocated that we haven't sort of tried to be cute about any of this. We've looked at the gas station thing and how do you approach that, because it's, again, under your regulations, it's a real mixed bag. When you look at what you have and where it's gone, how it happened it's really difficult to explain. So we just felt it would be better to come in and say, if you really want to straighten it out and sort of keep it sort of on one track instead of saying, it's just an accessory use, you've allowed it other places, we want it here, the real use is a convenience store. And that's an argument, but it seems somewhat to us, not that I wouldn't legally make it, but I think we'd rather just be straightforward and say, it's gas is a component of this, so let's discuss,
Get it out there.
get it out there and let it be heard. And again, we just think, as a matter of convenience for the public, it's easier to just push it into one so that they can, sort of speak on it. Because you'll get 10 people wanting to come up and talk about the text change, thinking that, we're talking about the gas station. And so why not put them together in a sense, zone change and the text change?
Because we're going to hear it again when you come for the application.
Well, but that's sort of a little bit different, because then you get right into the things David was talking about. You get a full-blown traffic report. Are you satisfied with that? You get an actual sort of layout of
Right.
the how we
Okay.
may change Elm Street.
But Ms. Sarno, you're
I'm
absolutely
done.
correct.
Okay,
Right.
I'm done.
Two things being considered tonight, and
There are two things that need to be considered here tonight, as far
they're-
as I'm concerned.
yeah, and they're just showing
So,
you what they plan to do ahead of time, and
I'm
that
not
will
gonna,
come later.
And sort of
Okay.
be that. Finally, I know Mr. Troiano wants to say a few things, if he might.
I was going to say, I actually agree with you, and I understand that. I think we're trying to make it clear. When we've been working with the Bissonnettes for the last 3 years on this project, we were very happy and also very cautious to bring forward a plan that didn't really show what we're putting in for a business idea. Here, we actually have 3 individual people that we have their layouts. It's basically superimposed on the colored rendering. So we actually know what the layout's going to look like. If we came to you with a BG plan and said, hey, we want to put a gas station on it, what else you got? It leaves a lot of unknown, a lot of concern. We went into this idea of not knowing what it was going to be, but at the same time, we knew that it was a nice parcel. We knew there was a lot of challenges with it. We knew it was never even an intention to go out Montclair. We never wanted to go out Carroll, and we didn't do that. Those were some of the challenges that were part of this. So our biggest opportunity was when we finally got users for the site, and we were able to have them on the site in locations that work for them and for us. At least we're showing you something that's got more clear of what we intend to bring forward, although we're not bringing that forward now, as you said, and we agree with you there. We made it very clear, and it doesn't show on that plan very well, but it's better on the colored rendering. We are not going out Carroll. We didn't color it for the purpose, we're not talking about a zone change there. And one that was not mentioned is one house that's at 141, and Sean, that little box that's by Elm Street, that's actually included in this parcel. We are not including in the zone change to show there's like a bookend area there. That's going to remain residential. That's not part of this application, although it's part of the so-called the deal of the Bissonnette property itself. But all this was actually pushed to have the gas station, which is the largest user in this center, to try to mitigate any kind of interference or any kind of concerns that may be brought up. And we understand there'll be issues we talked about, but the same principle on having the childcare in the back. And that's the reason why we kind of laid it out the way it did. But at least we have an idea and we can present you the big vision here. And that was what we really tried to do in kind of waiting. We've had an idea for a long time, but we wanted to present something more clear.
But
And that
you-
was kind of the idea.
Also can give us this vision, and we can also change it, and it can be an entirely different vision. You're not going to, that doesn't necessarily, you're going to even stay with the gas station concept. It could be, once we change it, we change it. So anything under the BG zone can go there. So, you could change your mind, or maybe your tenant, who aren't change their mind by going there. So it's now something different. So we're looking this at a zone change, but we're looking at it for a zone change for a gas station. And I think that's what we shouldn't be doing. But I think I'm outvoted on this, so I'm just gonna let the public talk. And
You have to be aware, exactly as she said, that, if the zone is changed, it remains
we change the zone.
BG.
Period.
So any use can go in there.
Yeah.
So I think what they're attempting to do is show you that they're fairly committed to what you see up here. So it's not a speculative development where they're going to, I don't want to put words in their mouth where they're
No, I
pull a
think
fast one or
that's
something.
kind of the point that I was trying to make. I understand your point as well, and you're right from a technical point. This is what we plan on coming back with, though, and it's hard to say that on individual applications, but when we had the two together, it gave us the opportunity to show you much more so. So yes, and as Paul said, and what was brought over to Sean as well, nobody wants to make a legal commitment until you kind of have the idea that they can actually commit themselves and they can put their own resources to something a little more fruitful down the road until they get a little farther along in the zone change. And of course, what we have before you with the text change is certainly what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
But that's the reasoning why.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we have a list of people that would like to talk. We'll go by the list. Commissioner Longi has the timer. You're going to be allowed 5 minutes each for the first time around, and you will be able to come back for a second time.
I won't give you a 30-second warning because I think that interrupts people's train of thought. So when you're at the 5 minutes, I'll put my hand up so that way you can summarize fairly quickly.
The first speaker is Lori Woodson from 7 Montclair. Please state your name, though, to the microphone for the secretary.
Good evening. My name is Lori Woodson.
Turn that microphone, would you? Perfect.
Lori Woodson. Is that better? Okay. Lori Woodson. I live at 7 Montclair Drive. I have a couple of concerns, major concerns I think are shared by several of the people behind me. First thing is addressing something you brought up about what this vote is about in terms of the zoning change, first of all. I think one major concern is that if the zoning change is made or approved, it just opens this huge door for approval of the gas station later. I know we're all talking about gas station, which is your concern there, that it's not about the gas station yet, but I think it is about the gas station. So I think that's important consideration there when addressing the hearing about the zoning change. Regarding that, as was stated, there's a gas station at Stop and Shop, there's one at Costco, there's one down the road at the Mobile, not 2,000 feet away. So why do we need another one? Is my question, and I'm curious if there's any influence regarding the fact that there are all these dealerships right there. There's a lot of car issues right there. There's going to be a gas station. How convenient right there. My second concern is about the traffic, which you, sir, brought up about St. Thomas. Given, of course, that I live in Montclair Drive, I experience that regularly. And even though that specific example of the St. Thomas issue is, as you addressed, not, these applicants' problem per se, it is a problem because it is a direct, no matter what they do in their tiny area that they're talking about, it will have trickle-down effect all the way up and down Elm Street, which anybody, I think, who lives in Enfield and travels Elm Street is literally gridlocked several times a day from 91 all the way almost to Washington Road, all the way down. Lights get blocked, intersections get blocked already. So if you add that light where this development is going to be another four-way intersection, it's going to be another four-way stop pattern, it's going to further hinder traffic as much as they're saying it doesn't. It won't. It'll be already through traffic. It will impact the flow of the traffic through that area, even if it doesn't cause extra traffic to appear. In addition, as Nantuck was mentioned, and I'm curious how the traffic flow will affect that intersection, which is right there, also a light. And as Nantuck is difficult to pull in and out of as it is at certain times of day, with the traffic pattern already there, which is not far from this intersection. Another thing I would ask you to consider is the fact that there are already so many vacant buildings in Enfield, zoned for commercial use. Whether or not they're new, there's one right down the road, brand new, beautiful building with, I think it's 2 or 3 office or spaces, has been vacant for like 2 years. It was built brand new and there's nothing in it. There's several instances of that where these brand new buildings are built, they're lovely, nobody goes in them. Look at all the buildings with space available, written on it, signs. There is not, who's coming in and what's the guarantee that they're going to be there and actually improve the environment, improve, the economy of Enfield, or leave in a year because their business is failing and they can't afford to stay, which seems to be what happens over and over and over again. Why not put money or effort into developing the pieces that are already available for use, promoting NASM? I know that's kind of an outside issue, not necessarily related to these individuals, but my last major concern is regarding the residential parcel, which I think is on the other one. Again, I live on Montclair Drive, so this impacts my street directly. My biggest concern is if these are not detailed in terms of extending the cul-de-sac and adding 5 lots. What does that mean? What type of housing is going to go in there? Is it going to be duplex housing? Is it going to be apartments? Could that possibility exist down the road if they don't build on it now, single-family homes? Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Second person on the list is Jack Kelly. Is Jack Kelly still here?
Present. Good evening.
Good evening.
Jack Kelly, 5 Montclair Drive in Enfield. And believe me, Lori did a nice job explaining everything I wanted to say, except why do we have to have our street extended? Montclair Drive. Why? I'm asking a question.
We can't answer.
Oh, you can't?
No,
Oh.
you present to us and we listen to what you
Okay,
say.
well, what my biggest concern is, I've lived on that street 37 years. It's been a quiet, peaceful street. All neighbors, for the most part, are very, very friendly. Why do we need to expand it? Why can't we just leave our street the way it is? 1. 2, the traffic patterns going up Dorothy Street onto St. Thomas, horrendous. At the top of the street, there's a curve, and these cars are blasting through there. Blasting through there. That's my house. Yeah, that's your house. But no, seriously, it's the traffic pattern, like Lori said, and I never even talked to her anything about this, but everything she said, I'm agreeing with her. Fox Hill was not mentioned, meaning Dougie. He's been there for 150 years. He only does general auto repair. That's within the 2,000 feet, just as a point of interest. But the traffic, again, is the biggest concern. And I would only hope that in offering your consideration that you just flatly refuse this whole thing. For all the good of our residents in our neighborhood. Not out of greed, but out of necessity. Thank you.
Can I just make a comment here? We're not discussing a zone change for Montclair. It's already zoned residential, and they're not proposing to build anything. That's just a concept. We're here for a zone change on the part on
I
Elm Street.
understand that, but it was mentioned to me.
Well, it shows it there, but
No, it was mentioned to me by a certain individual that it is going to happen one way or the
yeah,
other.
but that's not why we're here tonight. We're here for the
Again.
zone change on Elm Street.
Again, I understand that, but I'm against it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
person is Joyce Jones.
I don't walk too good.
She doesn't walk too good, you're too good, or see too good.
I've been sitting too long.
Wait,
I'll make it.
no, wait 1 second, let
I'm
me just
old.
get this.
Hope
Stop.
this doesn't take up my 5 minutes.
No, I haven't even gotten down yet. He
Hey, I used to
didn't.
sit up there. I was on Historic Commission.
No, we're not.
Just a second. Ow. Can you hear me? Charlie knows me. I'm Joyce Jones. I live at 159 Elm Street. Now, this gas station is going to be my next door neighbor. Now, this gas station is going to be open all night. It's going to be lights. There's going to be oil gas deliveries. There's going to be teenagers hanging around there. And this gas station is in a perfectly residential area. There's no place for a gas station. Would any of you want a gas station next door to you or in back of you? Or on the side of you? No. Now, I've always backed the Troianos. I think they did a great job with the bank and with the St. Francis Care Building. That was fantastic. But this is going too far. We do not need, in fact, we don't even need a zone change. There should be, if anything, there should be houses built there because there's houses all around. It's a U shape, and I'll tell you, the traffic is horrendous. I live on Elm Street, on the corner of St. Thomas. Our homeowner insurance skyrocketed because of the accidents on Elm Street and the traffic stops by the cops. Now, is this fair to us? And now they want to put more, and then he talked about Palumbo. Well, Palumbo was zoned for car dealers and all this stuff. Now, where Town Fair Tire is, that was a lot. They couldn't put it facing Elm Street because it wasn't zoned for business. So they faced it on Palumbo, and they moved it closer to Elm Street. So now we've got this big sign that says Town Fair Tire that shines in our houses. Now, I mean, come on, this town has got to, I mean, you've got to stop this somewhere. You can't keep doing this. I mean, everybody is up in arms over this zone change. Everybody is. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just us, but he mentioned that curve on St. Thomas. That's my house. I had a car go through into my pool because the street St. Thomas goes in, it curves. And my backyard is on this curve. And the traffic, if you do this, and the traffic going on to Montclair is going to be worse. And I don't think anybody, I mean, I don't think any of you would want a great big 18-pump gas station that's going to be open all night with lights next door to you or in your backyard. It's not fair to Enfield. My grandparents settled here when they got married. I was born here. My grandparents lived here. They raised their 5 kids here, and I saw Enfield change. Some good and a lot not good. And I'm tired of going out with friends in other towns that make fun of this town. They make fun of Hanush Jewelers. That's the big thing now. They said, what the heck? I mean, it's embarrassing. It really is. And I think this has got to stop. It's got to stop somewhere. Now, I always back the Troianos when people used to criticize them because they got all the towing.
We need to get personal and bring up people's names. This is a zone change.
We don't need the zone. We don't need a gas station.
Then that's what you need to say. You don't need to bring up people's names, and it's a zone change.
Right.
So that's it.
Like I said,
it's nothing personal against anybody developing property.
No. I have no. Like I said, I've always backed the Troianos. I always have. But not in this instance because this is going too far. Hey, make fun of it. I don't care, but it's just too bad. Thank you. Now I got to hobble back.
Patricia Jones.
Okay. I'm Patricia Jones, 159 Elm Street also. I look at things a little bit differently than my mom. I'm for development, I'm for change. The way they want to do what they want to do is the wave of the future, like you said. It's a good thing. It's a good fit. What's not a good fit, I feel, and I know this isn't the thing that, this isn't what we're supposed to talk about, is the things that want to go in there. The convenience store, the gas station, the restaurant. Because I'm thinking of the environmental impact and the impact on the residents around. The rats, the dumpsters, the deliveries in the middle of the night, that type of thing. Now, the daycare center, the bank, the other businesses, that's all great. Something else there. Maybe the medical marijuana dispensary, I don't know. But something, I mean, something else like that. I mean, that's the wave of the future, by the way. I mean, and my other concern was like what you were talking about, Kathleen. If you okay the zone change, and we're looking at this nice proposal, and maybe we all decide that, hey, it's not a bad gas station, it's not a bad convenience store. What's to say that the people that he's got a commitment from now decide, well, okay, well, we want a bigger gas station. We want, a bar there or something with it. Once you open that zoning, you can put whatever that zoning takes in there. And it might not be a nice, pretty parcel anymore. And that's why I'm afraid of changing the zoning, because then they can change the plan, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know that much about this. I also worry about the environmental impact, the underground river. People are getting their water, their well water for their grass and things there. What's going to happen when you put these underground gas tanks and oil tanks and things? Is this going to be a copacetic use in an area like that? You said there's very little wetlands during the study, but I think any amount of wetlands wouldn't be good for the gas tanks. I mean, maybe I'm, again, naive in that respect, but I don't see where that would be a thing I would want to build in that kind of an area. And then the drainage and whatnot to the people around. The traffic, that's going to be there. I'm sorry. I live there with my folks, and the traffic's going to be there. I know they propose to take part of our yard to widen things. Maybe these things have to happen, and maybe they should sell our houses, take all these houses, and make the road bigger if you want to develop it. But to take part of our land, it's bad enough where we're situated anyway, and I know that's nobody's fault, and that's nobody's concern but ours, but, I mean, I'm all for the development. I think it's great. The person involved was nice enough to talk to me on the phone about it. And I was like, Mom and Dad, it's not going to be that bad, But I didn't hear major gas station. I didn't hear major fast food place, convenience store. I mean, maybe a little tiny mom and pop convenience store, okay. Something copacetic with the residential surround. But I see where he's coming from. He's got to do highest and best use. I just don't think it's a good fit for right there. What about a nice, I don't know, I know we don't need another office building, but something that would benefit the town, like something other than things that bring dirt, noise, rats, trouble, etc. That's my concern. I had another point, but I can't remember what that is at this point, so I'll just leave it at that, and thank you.
You can come back later.
You're going to have another meeting on the rest of this?
Oh, tonight.
Oh, tonight? Okay, thank you.
Tara O'Neill.
I'll be quick. My name is Tara O'Neill. I live at 11 Carroll Street. So some of the concerns that I have is for the zoning text change. When you do that, changing it from 2,000 to 1,000, that's across the board, all of Enfield, right?
Yes.
So it's going to affect more people than everybody that's right here. So that's a huge concern for me. The sewer line, the drain runoff, the noise pollution, the environmental, the foot traffic. Putting all this stuff in our backyards, is there going to be a package store down the road with the gas station, the convenience store, the kids? People are going to be cutting through what used to be quiet neighborhoods on foot. So I have a concern with that as far as putting in a business general residential. Let's see. I think that's about it. That was it. Easy?
Not even a minute.
All right.
Good job.
Robert Cummings.
Good evening. My name is Robert Cummings. I live at 10 St. Thomas Street. Regarding the application 2819, the zoning text change, I would strongly recommend to you that you consider each one separately. They're listed separately for a reason, and you can see even as this meeting unfolds that there is confusion in the minds of some people as to what we're talking about and what one has to do with the other. They are two separate and distinct petitions, and they ought to be considered that way. With regard to that first petition, I would think that you would need a clear and compelling reason to make that change to your regulations. So far, I have heard neither a clear nor compelling reason. I've heard quite a bit about what it doesn't do and what it might not do. But so far, there's been no clear and compelling reason presented to support that zoning text change. And that's critical to the development listed under the second one. What is clear, however, is what your regulations do say, and without reading them, they clearly state what is permitted and what the distances are. That's the most clear and compelling part of this whole discussion is what your regulations do say. Also, somewhere along the line, mention has been made that permitting a gas station at this location would end the monopoly of the existing Elm Street gas station. It's clear that this commission's purview does not require to make decisions based upon economic competitiveness, so this factor should not be considered. Regarding 2820 petition, the zone change from residence 33 to business general, clearly this is spot zoning, and a strong case can be made for this case. The proposed change directly abuts eight houses, and 3 of the abutting borders, as other people have mentioned, are residential. The 4th border is Elm Street. But this area for the proposed zone change is surrounded by residential. For example, our house, 10 St. Thomas Street, has existed for more than 50 years, as have many of the neighboring houses. In fact, some of the people living there are the original owners. They were purchased with existing zoning. Now, after all these years of that continuity, they are facing a spot change of approximately 8 acres to business with a proposed full use, which is fine, and you would expect it from good businessmen. However, these owners that have been there for so long look to town governance in many ways, for the protection of their tax-paying investment. Appropriate zoning decisions are among the most important of those protections. Well, sometimes it may appear interesting that a building zone do not have the capacity to extend themselves, for example, to extend themselves across streets as a wildfire could. Building zones come about by regulation and other commission decisions, not by extension. A major factor in my objection, beyond this spot zoning, is Elm Street traffic is heavy at most times, to say the least. It's more than heavy. It's stop and go. Sometimes it's so frustrating it's almost gridlock. And while the presentation so far by the applicants have done a good job of saying that this will not, their proposal for the zone change will not increase the traffic problem, there is no way that you can have that many businesses, or let's just say a full use of that area, without bringing increased traffic. One last practical point. We live a tenth of a mile from Elm Street. And because of the traffic on Elm Street, we have chosen to drive about 10 times as far to get back to that same intersection of Elm Street and St. Thomas. It's I hope that there is a real traffic study to flesh out this issue, because it clearly needs it. And furthermore, my last point, it's worth noting that this fine presentation on residential uses and set-asides in the whole area neither improves nor detracts from my objections to the proposed zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lisa DeGray.
Good evening. My name is Lisa DeGray, and I currently live at 2 North Street in Enfield. I am also part owner of the home which I grew up on at 12 St. Thomas Street. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Tarnowitz family to express our concerns. First, I would like to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for the opportunity to speak to the proposed changes to what I would finally call the Button Farm and beyond. I thought it was important to share firsthand knowledge of what it's like to live on the edge of a residential and business zone. My current property at 2 North Street is abutted by a residential area on one side, a bank, and a gas station on the other side. I'll start with the gas station first. Even with the installation of a fence and strategic plantings in our yard, we can still see and hear all of the traffic that comes through the station from approximately 5 a.m. until midnight. We also can see if someone decides it's easier to urinate on the back side of the building when they don't have time to run into the store. We love motorcycles, but when they roll through with their straight pipes, it cuts right through you. The steady stream of traffic is maddening. Then there are the things that you wouldn't think of, like the unrelenting noise from the chillers that habitually come on at what seems like 1,000 times a day. Imagine this when you're trying to enjoy some time in your yard. We hear it even with the windows closed. There's also the dumpster that's emptied at 3 o'clock in the morning. And in a harsh winter like this past one, plowing begins at ungodly hours of the morning. Luckily, and I mean this facetiously, we don't need a nightlight in our bathroom because the now super bright LED lights that the station have are on until midnight and light up our bathroom quite well. And if a patron of the store doesn't have time to throw something away, they just throw their mattresses and tires behind that building in what should be a setback area between our properties. We've had people cut through our yard to go to the gas station, which has caused a safety concern. They don't mind looking around to see what we have in our backyard. Now for the bank. The bank has tried to work with us since Rockville and Bank merged. I'd like to give them credit for that. When we asked them to put up a fence, they agreed to pay for a portion of it. When we asked for parking stops to keep the people from hitting our fence, they agreed. However, we've had since one of those stops plowed into our fence, which resulted in $4,000 worth of damage to repair that. And while the fence has helped from the drive-through customers looking at me while I have my coffee on my patio, I can still hear their transaction quite well. We have also had light pollution concerns which remain unresolved. They have pointed the lights at the front of the bank down so they don't shine into our front yard. However, their light on the back of the building still remains on, which they said they have the right to do that. Like the gas station, our property serves as their trash can. The increase in traffic has been significant, and this is just from 2 banks that have merged, just from 2 banks. And we're concerned for our safety when we leave our driveway. Everyone is moving so fast today. We have noticed an increase in the traffic pattern. I'd also like to note, when I was leaving my parents' house at St. Thomas a couple of years ago, trying to take a left, I was involved in a motor vehicle accident. Luckily, it wasn't too severe, but I've experienced that as well. I believe the value of our home is impacted because of the area we are in, and I would hate to see the same thing happen to our neighbors at St. Thomas, Carroll, and Montclair Streets. I also believe the proposed zoning change constitutes spot zoning, as Bob Cummings, our neighbor, mentioned, and I ask if there is anything that you can do to stop this, please do. And I know you can't answer the question, but I'd still like to pose it to you to think upon. It's my understanding that the town has a master plan which considers where we are today while establishing where the community wants the town to be in the future. I'm just curious to know what the plan says in regard to that property. Was it always in your minds that someday it would be turned to a residential area? Lastly, I would like to add that I know that every property owner has a right to sell their property and to make a profit from that sale. I would just ask that the current owners to consider that there may be some other alternative, such as a residential development with access from Montclair. I'm sorry for Montclair people, you might not like that. But there could be some other alternative for that. It would be my wish, ultimately, that someone would be interested in preserving the natural space that has served as a much appreciated barrier between the business and residential zone. That's my comments.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Donald Lord. Donald? Pardon me?
No, I'm not going to talk about chickens. But my name is Don Lord, and I think I can honestly say I am now currently the longest continuous living resident on St. James Avenue. I've been in my house for 54 years. I appreciate you giving me this moment to talk tonight because I'm concerned about the trend that this is going to. Till now, there's been an understanding between the town and the residents behind us about encroachment of business across Elm Street. Elm Street had always been an existing DMZ, but we did not argue when you said, okay, we're going to do a transition zone, so we'll move in things like State Farm and the orthodontist, specifically because they had opening and closing times. Their businesses ran when the residents were at work, and they were closed when they were home. Additionally, I think something that I'm concerned also that making this zoning change is going to cause a precedent where other people are going to want to get rid of their properties. They're going to go, well, you did it here. Why don't you expand it to here? Why don't you expand it to here? And then we have the same thing starting that we have on the south side of Elm Street coming to the north side of Elm Street. And what, in essence, that does is it affects the home prices of hundreds of homes in the area. If someone gets rid of their house at a very reduced price because of the encroachment of business in their backyard, those are used as comparables to price other houses in the area. So what people aren't understanding is if someone on Carroll Street out of frustration sells their house, someone on Ridge Road may be affected adversely by that price because they use it as a comparable to price their house. So the entire neighborhood, hundreds of residents, have the possibility of being adversely affected by this. And I just would really implore upon you guys to consider that. Look at this beyond just a simple plot of land, something. I don't care what goes in it. It's just the zoning change I'm afraid of. show us that the town of Enfield cares more about its residents.
Right, exactly.
And that's it. Thank you very much.
Some people don't live around that area, so they don't care. People who don't live about that better care. Right. They don't live around there, so they don't,
That
Toronto.
gentleman has something to say.
What?
I think he's got something to say.
Who?
Albert
What?
Couldn't hear him? No, a gentleman in the back.
Oh.
No one's agreeing with him, that's all.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Albert Turano. I live at 2 Carroll Street. I'm going to be affected by this greatly because it's my backyard that I will have a restaurant in. And my main concern was the property on Carroll Street that if it was used for anything would put me, the little guy, around the big skyscrapers. And my questions were answered by them tonight by that. The other concern would be the lighting and the noise. I would hope that you would take that into consideration on what the plans are for my family, my backyard being lit up, or the noise considerations. Also, I don't know if you have control over the alcohol or whatever is served at these businesses that will be there, but again, that is my backyard. On the other hand, we need jobs. I mean, we need employment in town. There needs to be development. It's a hard decision, and I'm glad I'm not sitting in your seat. Thank you.
I can't read this last name. The first name is Stan.
Stosh.
All right. I'm Stan Snarsky. I live at 139 Elm Street, which is the house next to the last house that they're going to leave on the property. Everybody's complaining about the traffic. What they're going to do is not going to change the traffic pattern worth it at all. It's not going to make it any damn worse or any damn better until they widen the roads and get the traffic lights set so they all come on at the same time so the traffic moves. There ain't a damn thing that's going to help that traffic. Or they widen the road to 3 lanes. So by them doing the development, they'll make the intersection of Palumbo Drive somewhat bearable. Where you're sitting, coming out of Palumbo to take a left, or you got to wait 5 minutes or so for the light to change. It's ridiculous. That intersection sucks. And as far as people blocking the intersections, that's the people driving, the idiots out there. Okay, same thing at Five Guys. It's not the restaurant or the owner's responsibility. It's the idiots driving. Just like the idiots that drive by my house. They're on there texting on their phone. That's a lot to do with the traffic pattern. They need to develop that land. That land sits there bare. Like Al said, we need jobs. You know what? We need tax revenue because they're talking about raising our taxes again, another 2 goddamn %. All right? Who's going to keep forking out the money to keep building this stuff? They built the fire department. They can't even pay for the goddamn thing. Now they want to raise our taxes because of that? That was something that was voted here, too. A lot of thought went into that shit. I mean, these guys are doing a good thing by developing this place. I mean, I live 1 house away from where they're stopping. Okay? I deal with this every day, pulling in and out. And you guys cry because you live in a back neighborhood. Oh, I got to pull out into the Elm Street. And this development's really going to hurt me. Welcome to my world. I live right on the damn road. My house is zoned both commercial and residential. Okay? You don't hear me bitching about the traffic. We need to do something about the traffic. Get on the state's ass. That's the only way that's going to change. These guys doing the development isn't going to hurt a damn thing. Okay? They even said they're going to do the wetlands and whatnot. Hopefully they'll put a fountain in the pond to keep the water circulating so it doesn't get all foamy and full of algae. But, yeah, like I said, we need jobs and we need a better tax bracket, so we're not paying for the projects that the town dreams up. How they voted some of this stuff in is beyond me. But you got a private developer here that wants to do something good, and you got a few people that are pissing and moaning about it that don't even live close to that area. They're worried about a road that ain't even been put in yet, that might tie their road in. Right now, you got a lot of traffic going on St. James and those back roads to get off Elm Street. Until they do something with Elm Street, you're gonna have plenty of traffic going on the back roads to get away from it. I do it myself sometimes. As far as the gas station, well, they need another gas station. Yeah. People will be pulling off, they won't have as much traffic on Elm Street, that'll be your detour. That's all I got to say.
The next speaker is Joan. Joan, I don't know, 2 St. Thomas? Joan? Do we have a Joan?
Yes.
To
St.
Thomas?
Yes.
That's right.
Sorry, we didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. No, that's not why. I can't pronounce her last name. I'm sorry.
Targonsky. My name is Joan Targonsky. I live on 2 St. Thomas Street. I will be impacted by this because my back borders what they want to do, and part of my side borders for what they want to do. So from a quiet neighborhood, it's going to be the opposite. I've lived there for 57 years. I'm the original owner, my husband and I. I am against the petition for 2819. A lot of the other speakers have said what I was going to say, so I'll just end it here.
Thank you. Helen Wasco?
I'm Helen Waskill, and I'm 4 St. Thomas Street, and I moved in 2 months before my neighbor. Elm Street had 1 gas station and a bowling alley. Poli gas station and a bowling alley. That was it. It was farmland. It was gorgeous. That's why we bought. Right now, my back fence is right with where the property is. Mr. Button used to come to the fence, and he would say, "You've got water, you've got a stream running right through the property." He says, "Go down 10 feet, you're going to hit water." We did. He says, "You'll have a sprinkler system," and it's been going for 57 years. No problems. There's water back there, believe me. And they had an oil drum out there, just if they had junk, it was in the back fence. Back fence. It got to the point we had small children, Joan and I. And the kids used to play. We were afraid because the rats were coming. They had mounds and mounds of anything that, farm equipment, everything. It was all in that one big open field. So we got the environmental people. They dug holes, and I mean with the bulldozers and the scoops, and they buried everything. So when they go looking on their property, they're going to find sinks, tubs, anything that was laying around went in these holes. It's not real. It's a mess. And I think they should have been made aware of what's buried underneath there. Then my front yard, Mrs. Jones said she had the car go into her swimming pool. We've had 3 cars end up on our front yard. That S-curve, unreal. If I could move now, I think I would, but I can't. We had a beautiful, quiet street. But when they start digging to put the gas tanks in there, the storage gas tanks, they're going to hit water. They're going to hit water. Because right now, if there's a rainstorm, any amount of rain, I've got water in my backyard. And these properties abut each other. So Mr. Button knew what he was talking about, wetland. That's all I have to say.
Rick Guarini.
Sorry about that. Rich Guarini, 8 Carroll Street. I'm really somewhat uncomfortable in some of the things I need to say here because I've had such a great relationship with Henry over the years. I've lived there since 1960. One of the things that really bothers me, excuse me, and it's brought me here, is this idea of not coming before this commission with a plan, but with this architectural, I guess you'd call it, drawing. They can't be held to anything on that drawing. And by my estimation, quick calculation is, I looked at the buildings that were going to be used for commercial, and they represented less than 10% of the entire Carroll Street section. What builder, developer, would develop a piece of property where his income was less than 10% of the entire piece? The rest of it's all parking and whatever they're going to give back to the town. So that doesn't make sense to me. It just tells me that, and again, perhaps I'm wrong, but it gives me the idea that it's the gas station and nothing more than that that's the real reason for all of this. I think they should have left this as 2 pieces and agreed with you. And one of the reasons for that is when we talk about the traffic on Elm Street, you talk about Palumba not increasing and increasing the traffic. But if you stop to think about it, if you're going to capture what comes down Elm Street to go into the gas station, it's like going into a bucket that's got to come out the same way. So it's going to come out the same way, and it's going to come out at that stoplight, that parking stoplight rather, that's at the corner of Palumba. Right now, you could measure it, and the only one going in and out is Henry. But when the traffic starts going through there, traffic is going to go in. You're going to have to adjust that traffic light to allow traffic to come back out onto Elm Street. Okay? So you're going to slow the traffic down with regard to that traffic coming back out onto Elm. When you slow that down, it's going to have an effect on the traffic light that got changed to fresh water, that this town went through hell to move some years ago. We had all kinds of meetings about combining, I think we had one on Carroll or St. Thomas, whatever it was, and it's combined to that one that we call fresh water. So anything that you do at Palumba intersection is going to affect what happens at the fresh water. All right, getting back to the parcels. And again, it just seems to me it'd be better if it were run in two pieces where the state would be asked to provide traffic studies, lights, so on and so forth, widening the streets. Who's going to pay for that? I would expect the developer pay for part, excuse me, at least part of that. But it's going to be widening the streets pretty much by Palumba, and I'm sure it would have to have an effect on the freshwater intersection as well. Okay, looking at that piece, let me say that since 1960, the water situation has gotten worse. As the development took place across the road with, I think it was the grocery store first and then something else, and now we've got Home Depot in there. You get more and more blacktop, less ground for the rainwater to fall through. So we're getting it down.
Time.
We're getting it on, just finish up. We're getting it on Carroll Street. All of the houses included in that plan have sump pumps in the cellar because we have water in the cellar every time we get a major storm. I hope you'll give us another 3 minutes later. Thank you.
This is Danny O'Connell. What? We're going to take a short break.
Good evening. I'm Dan O'Connell. I live on 7 Dorothy Street. I definitely would like you to consider rejecting the zone changes. Listening to the presentation this evening, a couple things struck me, and one that I really need to speak about is I really think that the commission does a great job protecting our community and guiding its development. When they discussed the 1,000 feet versus 2,000 feet, and it almost implied that there was something not quite right about what's happening on Palumba, or the stretch where we have car dealerships and gas stations and things like that. I happen to think that's pretty well thought out. All those businesses are surrounded by other businesses. So if I want to go get my car fixed, I go to that area, and the noise and the pollution and the lights, that's not impacting people that are trying to have a peaceful neighborhood. Appropriate development is another word they used. And when I look at that drawing, I see a U shape. There are many, many people in the neighborhood that live in a peaceful setting and are counting on you to deny these changes so that any development that happens would maintain that peaceful neighborhood in which they live right now. So we have a lot of faith that you'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Break? No, that's it.
Well, I'll make a motion for a 5-minute break, and then if we'll get another list going if we need to. Is there a second?
Second.
Can you put that back over there again?
Got to vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye. Can we have everybody sit down, please?
We should say,
Because you never put a fence up.
I know.
well, that's why I think somebody put a fence up.
Because I'm not giving you a hard time about it.
It's the haircut.
You speak louder?
Forget it now. That's okay.
The short
I've got my
haircut?
home, it's okay then.
No, I look like Charlie.
A new sign-up sheet?
What?
That's what she called me, Charlie.
Oh,
I said, but they called her Charlie. Somebody, I think, thinks that I was Kathleen, so it's okay.
I have to read this letter, by the way.
I've got one letter. Okay, if you want to read it, I was going to go through and just mention she's here tonight. I just to mention like the one or two issues I
No, I'll read it.
brought up, but if you're welcome.
Let me read this letter now. Okay, I can get it over with.
Yeah, okay.
what's it?
Yeah, it's somebody testifying they don't want it.
Secretary has a letter that he would like to read.
This is from Karen Cunningham. She addresses this members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Karen Cunningham. I reside at 10 Carroll Street in Enfield. I'm opposed to the proposal of rezoning of lots listed above on Elm Street. Proposed construction is to include a gas station with a convenience store, a restaurant, a bank, retail and/or office space, and a daycare. Besides, this is in my backyard. 3 gas stations have closed within a 2 to 3 mile radius of this location. What it is to say that this proposed fuel station will make it. Costco gas, Stop and Shop gas, and the mobile station, which is located at less than 2,000 feet from the proposed gas station, are sufficient for this area of our town. By considering to rezone the lots listed above on Elm Street with the proposed plan without commitment from businesses, is it possible a big box retailer could move in? Elm Street has enough commercial zoning, enough restaurants and retail locations. I believe there are many empty commercial properties that are in need of redeveloping in Enfield. Please consider these properties. It is also my understanding that the Carroll Street parcel is currently to remain residential. There is concern in our neighborhood that it could become a cut-through for the proposed commercial development with additional foot traffic by non-residents. Over the past week, I've spoken to my neighbors, and they have many concerns as well. By clearing the property, the traffic noise level will overtake our neighborhood, and the privacy of our neighborhood has had for many, many years. That will be a thing of the past. I've been advised that when a lot developed or proposed to be developed with commercial uses abuts or is across the street from residential district, it must maintain or establish buffer yards. Buffer yards would include canopy trees, evergreens, and shrubs with width 35 feet. It will take many years for those trees to provide the privacy that our neighborhood deserves. As busy as Elm Street has become, by considering this change in zoning, it will affect the surrounding neighborhoods negatively on many levels, resale value first and foremost. Thank you for listening to the few of my concerns. Sincerely, Karen Cunningham.
Sean, do you have a copy of this?
We do. Yes, in fact, I was
Okay, stamped and it's in,
stamped in. It was received today.
okay.
It didn't make it back.
Okay, we have 5 more people that wish to speak. Remember, it's a 5-minute limit. I said that right, didn't I? 5-minute limit. Dan Blasco.
Dan Blasco, 6 St. Thomas Street, adjacent property. Have a couple points. I reiterate everything that everybody's already stated, but I kind of want to stay on topic of the zone and the 2819 for the 2,000 to 1,000 feet. I'm not an expert in that. I don't know what the global effects of that is. It sounds like it's across the community. So I leave that one to you. I'm going to try and stay away from that. But the rezoning, I have a couple points I wanted to make. I know it was proposed with gas stations and daycares and all that type of stuff, but avoiding that, once it goes to a BG zone, a big box could be proposed. I understand you guys do have the ability to stop that from happening, but as time goes on, it does open that door for the potential for that to occur. So I just wanted to make that point. It was also mentioned of transitional use. I was under the understanding that Elm Street is kind of that DMZ, residential north, kind of more commercial south of the road. I'm not really familiar with the area. I'm actually new to Connecticut. I've only moved here in 2012 with the goal to start family, kids. And my fiance and I are against this because we're now considering moving if this were to happen, because now we no longer have that family-friendly backyard that was quiet. I mean, we gave horse apples last summer. It's a complete change to the other direction. I understand the applicant trying to not propose big box, but the change is still the change to business. So it's really a change to that essential character of the neighborhood, and that's what really concerns me. It was also stated at one point that residential has been analyzed and doesn't work in the area. It's already residential. There's already houses there, so I don't really understand why it wouldn't work there, and it's being proposed to take the northern plot of R33 and put 5 houses there. I understand there might be wetlands and things, but if you're building, you're building, whether it be residential or business. I don't understand the argument that was trying to be made there. It's just, and the key I wanted to just reiterate one more time is that the change to that essential feel of the neighborhood. And I won't be able to go out and have coffee on my patio and watch potentially watch a horse walk by, or the hawks fly around, or the fox run around, because they're all going to move and hop up and go away. It's a true change to the neighborhood. And being a relatively new resident, I wouldn't have moved here if that was the house I would live on. So thank you for your time and appreciate it. Thank you.
Ben Halmer.
Ben Helmers, 8 Montclair Drive. Thanks for hearing us tonight. I want to just say that I agree with all of the concerns that people have raised tonight. I think they're all valid, and I think they're all worth considering. I do have a few things that I wanted to just talk a little bit more about. One of the items, so I live on Montclair Drive now. I formerly lived on St. James, which I think a lot of people know is a cut-through from one side of town to get over to the mall in that area. One of my concerns is we've talked a lot about the traffic on Elm Street and on 220, which is bad, but I'm also concerned about the cut-through becoming more of St. Thomas in that area. As people don't want to go all the way out to the other side and take a left at Freshwater and have to take another left into this area, they're going to want to cut through St. Thomas and through that area to be able to take the 2 rights to get into this. And I'm very concerned that that traffic that currently goes all the way through St. James is now going to be diverted through what's even a smaller residential road and area. Being on Montclair Drive, if you're familiar with that area at all, you pull out kind of at a corner, a little curve around the bend. People come through there pretty quickly already, and so either taking a left into Montclair or taking a right out of Montclair or riding bikes or having the kids out for walks can be pretty dangerous, and that increase in traffic is going to make that worse. I think people are going to continue to come through there with a great deal of speed, probably more often than they do right now. So I think that's another big thing that I want to reiterate. The other thing that concerns me is on the map. They talked a little bit about leaving that one section residential, and that's great, but I think they mentioned that they are not residential developers. There's no commitment to actually doing that. And so my concern is that while they're only looking to zone half of it now, if they do become successful with this, is there the possibility that they're going to come back and say, yeah, we already did half of it, so what's the other half? What's the difference between extending that down and increasing that down and impacting a lot more neighbors? The other thing, and somebody just mentioned it now, which I think was a great point, in our area, I've seen deer, I've seen fox, I've seen rabbits, I've seen turkey, I've seen hawks, all of which come from that area, from that field, and use the wetlands back behind our area to commute back and forth to the river. And I think developing that area and putting those buildings in that area is going to significantly impact that wildlife and just the feel of that neighborhood. The last point is, we talked a little bit about the people who are directly around that area and the noise and the light pollution and that type of impact. While it won't be as significant for us, sound carries very well. We can hear the traffic on Elm Street already. We can hear the sirens. We can hear all of the different things happening out there as that's brought back further into those other neighborhoods, including Montclair and some of the other Carroll Street and a few of those other neighborhoods. That noise is going to increase. So we talk about the 3 a.m. dumpster pickups. That's not just going to impact those areas directly abutting this development, but that's going to impact neighborhoods that are further back and further removed from that. So I think that's another thing that's important to consider. So thank you for your time. I hope you carefully consider all of these items and ultimately reject this plan. So thanks.
Laurie Woodson? Now, you were on the first sheet, so it has to be something different now, okay?
It is something different.
Okay, thank you.
Hello again, Lori Woodson, 7 Montclair Drive. Just listening to everybody's concerns that have been here tonight, I think the biggest kind of take home and the thing I would appeal to you most when considering these zoning changes and rejecting these zoning changes is the character of the neighborhood. In general, the idea of a neighborhood, a family neighborhood, because it feels like more and more of Enfield is getting developed and there is an erosion, a slow, steady erosion of the neighborhoods of Enfield. Not specifically even just this area, this property, but all over Enfield. There's an erosion of this neighborhood feel. And as far as I'm aware, we're still the town of Enfield, not, big city Enfield. So while I understand that development is necessary and required fiscally and everything else, there are so many other properties that are already commercial that don't impact neighborhoods and the feel of the neighborhood that we want to maintain. It's one of the big draws of Enfield is the fact that we have these sprawling neighborhoods in this family environment where you can have your kids out and you can take a walk and you can take a bike ride and it's safe because it's very neighborhood oriented. It's not lots of traffic. It's not big business. It's not garbage and et cetera, all the negative aspects. So I know a lot of people have talked hypotheticals and what ifs and this and that, but those are real, very real concerns and very real realities of what would be to come if you acknowledge the truth behind changing. I know this is a simple zoning change. The whole gas station thing is a hypothetical, but it's the door that you're opening very wide to continue this neighborhood erosion is the best term I can think of. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, dear. Sandra Jones?
Hi, I will be very brief. I just agree with all of the comments that
Name
I've
and
heard
address.
here. Excuse me?
Pardon me?
Name and address.
Oh, Sandra Jones, 39 St. Thomas Street. I oppose the zone changes that have been proposed this evening and hope you reject them. And as a parent of middle school children who have to wait at the bus stop at the corner of St. Thomas and Elm Street, I do believe, I already sit there and watch the traffic go by. There are children standing out there, which these left-hand turns, and I do believe that the traffic will increase with everybody in the morning traffic trying to go run and get their gas or their coffee or whatever. As a parent, I'm concerned about my children standing out there and waiting, and every other child that has to do that. What struck me most was the lady who spoke of her actual experience living next to such a development. And I would hope you would consider all those things that she said and how you would feel if you were a homeowner with such a proposal happening in your backyard. And I think we are all bringing up concerns, but she brought in the reality. So again, I hope you reject this development proposal. Thank you.
Len, is it? I'm sorry. Porcello? I can't read these ratings.
Hi, Len Porcello, 9 Carroll Street in Enfield. I got here late, but most of the concerns I agree with what the people have said. I kind of look at it from a different point of view. I ran a retail business in this town. What's proposed on that thing, anyone who would put a store in there would be crazy because it's dead space. Retail is location, location, location. And that's not a location to put a retail in because you're not going to be able to get in and out. We have enough empty restaurants, empty stores in the town that if businesses want to come in, there's plenty of room for them. And there's no reason to take this pristine place and disrupt all these neighbors for more retail space that we honestly really don't need. If it was something that the town was going to make it a better place to live, that's different. But there's nothing here that's going to add to the quality of life in this town. It's just going to cause more problems. That's all I had to say. I hope you don't consider.
I think we gotta ask if anybody else didn't sign up and they wanna speak.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Oh.
I'd like to cut to the chase here and have this meeting get over in a few minutes. This meeting was supposed to be about houses. Bill from Montclair, that's all you have to know. This meeting was supposed to be, why?
It's a public hearing.
Bill O'Brien from Montclair. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. This meeting, we were under the assumption of just 5 houses. How did it get into changing zoning? Who proposed this?
That's what the meeting
We were under the assumption when we came here, it was only supposed to be for 5 houses being built. We wouldn't have to change anything. So somebody is making more something on this so they can put in what they want to put in. Now, the most important thing is, I was told that you can't use some of that because it's wetlands. Do you know there's a 4-foot stream that was covered over by the guy who built the houses there in the backyards of Montclair? There's 2 houses there that got wells. They do their own lawn all the time. That's wetland in the corner in the back. Because we used to have water come all the way up to the end of the back of the house. So we had to put a sump pump in. But that's okay? Why is that okay now? It isn't. Have these architects got a geologist or anybody in there to look at this property, to see what they can do and develop this before we have all this talk? And where's their drawings to tell him what he wants to do in certain areas? This is just going by helter-skelter here. Just saying, oh, we're going to put this here, put this here. Where are those 5 houses going? Are they going straight down? Or are they going to go 3, 2? Or 2, 3? How are these plans going to be? And what's up front? Are you going to knock Button's Flower Farm, where she used to have the flowers? Now that's all wet, because she used to have flowers there. Because I know, I lived down there. That was all wetlands down there. Because the water's coming from underneath that road down there. That's water. But that's not wetlands? Is it where they want to say they don't want it to be, or where they want it to be? What's going on? Does anybody know really what's going on? Nobody knows what's going on here. It's just a meeting, and nothing's being accomplished. What's being accomplished there? We don't have no architect drawing or anything to start this. Like the fire station was built before we even voted on it. Right? Same old cliche right here. Sick of it. That's enough.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak before the commission? Name and address, please.
Lynn O'Connell, 71 Parker Road, Somers, Connecticut. My father and I, Henry Bissonette, own the property that's subject to these applications. Our family has owned this property for more than 4 generations. The majority of this time, we farm the land, growing flowers, plants, vegetables. Over the years, farming's become less economically viable, and for the past 12 years, the property has remained mostly dormant. During this time, multiple proposals have been submitted for the town for development as commercial property. The town has encouraged us to propose commercial development that's sensitive to our neighbors. Mr. Frank Triano has worked with my family for more than 2 years to come up with a plan that meets the town's requirements. The current plan uses approximately half the property as residential conservation area, and the commercial area uses only Elm Street for access. The plan allows my family to responsibly develop the property while minimizing the impact to neighbors. This process has been a long, difficult, and draining process for my father and me. I would respectfully request the commission approve the applications of Mr. Frank Triano's company. I do thank you for your consideration. It's really not an easy choice for my family. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak before the commission? What do you want to do?
The applicant gets to respond.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, dear.
You have to open it up to the applicant again, and then again to the public to
Thank
respond
you.
to what they say.
When they're through.
When they're through, he can come up.
Did somebody else want to?
Yeah.
Go ahead, we can. Yeah, sure.
Oh, you can come up, sir.
It's past my bedtime. Name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Robert Cummings at 10 St. Thomas. During the presentation for the zone change, essentially they made the point that the zone change would not exacerbate the already existing traffic on Elm Street, which ranges from heavy to gridlock, and that it would draw mostly from the existing traffic on Elm Street. In some cases, that's hard to understand because using the examples they have in their presentation, a daycare center would draw far more people than just casually drive by it. Likewise, a bank. People would go to a bank because they want, not because they drive by it, but because they want to do business at that bank. Obviously, the service trucks that have to service these, whatever goes in there, are not already driving by there, i.e. if they're fuel trucks or dumpsters or whatever. So to me, it seems to me that whatever goes in there is going to add to the traffic problems. And you're going to have that stoplight stop traffic to let people in and stop traffic to let people out. And that's just going to cause further backup. And going back to the zoning text change, I'm still concerned that there's no solid reason given why this is being made. In other words, why the text change is being asked for. What is the reason that justifies this change? And it seems to me that's the starting point for both of these petitions. And again, I would urge the commission to consider them separately to avoid confusion and mishmashing of pros and cons from one petition to the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else before the attorneys come up?
For the record, Attorney Paul Smith for the applicant. Obviously, we take the statements and the comments from the members of the public very seriously. Going into this, I think we recognized that it's a challenging application given its location. And that sort of and the history of this in terms of what has been proposed and the commission's input over the years. What we tried to do, obviously, in a general sense, and I think Frank would probably want some time to address some of the specifics, but what we tried to do, obviously, is isolate the most intense use, which is the convenience store service station in the center of the commercial development, with a softer approach of the things that are around it, the bank, and in the back, the daycare private learning center. So, I mean, that's sort of the intent. I think there are some excellent, there's some excellent questions. We'd like to look at those and probably more fully address those. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Frank.
Yeah, I think so. And Paul's absolutely right. We've heard a lot, and needless to say, we have a lot to work on, and needless to say, I don't think it's going to be able to answer everything tonight. We can actually answer quite a bit with more clarity and a little bit more time. Just to answer just a few things that did pop up that just kind of stick in my head for a little bit. Mr. Greeny is right. There's only 10% being developed, if you will, or at least there's a very low development amount, especially compared to some of the other people in the past. That was part of the application. That's part of the intention. One of the benefits that I have is being before you many, many times in the past, as Ms. Jones actually was very nice to say, and I appreciate her comments. It gives me the opportunity to tell you that what that proposal is what we're going to do. It gives you that clarity to know that I'm going to be in front of you hopefully again for something else that's easier, simpler, positive, and a benefit to the town that I also live in. And I've also been here and developed and done projects before you, but that is what we're planning on doing, and that's what I'm telling you it's going to happen. I'm putting it into the record that way. That is what's going to happen. We're not going to come in and actually change what the zone is going to be for the purpose of another entity or some other ulterior motive. And I think that knowing I'm probably going to be coming before you, you wouldn't have that kind of trust in me for the future applications, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it carries some weight to a degree. But I wanted to mention that because he did mention that it was not developed to its full capacity, which is another part of why we wanted to be very cautious in our presentation here. Also with Lynn, and I'm sure she was reflecting on her father being the owners of the property, this is a challenge for everybody. And that's why we've taken a lot of time, we've taken a few years of thinking about coming in with something that we think makes sense, it would be a benefit. We're well aware that other people may or may not see it the same way, but I think we can actually work on some of these comments, which we have now. And one gray area we don't have is we don't have comments from the commissioners to know what else we're missing to really focus on this property and its impacts and how we can actually mitigate or figure something out to make this development work, because we do think it's a positive for the town. But because of all that, we need to work on this, and we certainly would like to come back to the next meeting and actually address any comments and kind of give clarity to some of these things that were mentioned.
On our thought process, we had a chance to talk during the break is to see is there a way to soften it more in some way. Is there, there's concern about the even residential development in the back. Now, we've said that is a matter of right. It's an R33, so you come in and, but that's not really the intent here or the desire. So is there a way to soften that in a sense, or deal with it in a way that you know, we're not going to solve every problem or every comment that has come before the commission. It's not going to be perfect. We understand that. And I understand the concerns of people around there. I do. We certainly, none of what we're saying is try to delegitimize anybody's feelings or comments on these issues. But I think, you know, we take it as a serious matter. As I said, the Bissonnettes, as a family, have struggled with this piece for many, many years. And, you know, they certainly would like to see something that's successful. I mean, one of the challenges here, obviously, is when you're talking about improving, and that's what the state will look at, improving that intersection. They're not, you know, it's an economic driver because those improvements won't be minor, you know. People have talked about controlling the lights better. That's maybe one of the things we can give you some insight into is how we are going to do that, because we think ultimately we're going to make the overall situation on Elm Street better, not worse.
Well, just to dovetail on that, one of the big benefits we have, but one of the comments that was made in the public is we are responsible to be a contributor, if not the sole person to pay for any improvements or changes to the intersection, which is also a driver on the economic side of why there needs to be development on it to some degree that actually would benefit the light. So to do that, there's a challenge, and there's a little bit of a risk and reward, if you will, on you have to do a development to get the light improved as well. And we understand there might be a balance issue that has to be addressed as well. One other comment that I wanted to make as well, that we do office space as well for part of our business. There's not the demand to put an office building here. It's just not there. We can say that professionally and knowing that we have advertisements for that, be it medical, general, it could be anything in regards to office space. There's just not a high demand in office space, not just here, but the economy is not really fruitful for everybody at this point, but that is something we can say openly that it's not really there yet. In regards to the back development, as you know, we're supposed to give you a concept of what it could or should be by your own standards. We're not asking for that, and that maybe was misleading to some people. I wanted to clarify that as well, because that is not a proposal that we've ever had. It is something to say that your regulations, that's what you would allow today. And that's the only reason why it was put on the plan, as you guys request, as per normal applications that we actually present to you. And that was another thing I wanted to make sure was clarified. But we'd appreciate the opportunity to actually review our notes and the comments that we heard, and if you have any comments that we can actually work on, we'd love to hear those as well.
Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to come before us? That's it. Wait a minute.
I just gotta say my piece here.
That's
No,
okay.
sit
No,
right
no,
there.
no, no,
No.
sit right here, people.
One thing I'd like to say.
You
gotta
Has
be in the
anybody
microphone
looked
That's right, you
into?
gotta be in the microphone.
Just name and your
You can
address.
hear me without a microphone. Come on.
Just your name and address.
Bill O'Brien again. How come the south end of Enfield was never zoned for some of the stuff you're trying to do up here? Have you looked into that? Look at the number 1379 was a gas station. Look it up. 1379 was a gas station. It was, I know the guy used to run it. I used to stop for gas all the time. But why is it gone? Do I have to tell you why? Do I have to tell you why? Mm-hmm. Though some people live down in that area that didn't want it. So why should we have to put up with what they want? You understand? Look up that 1379. Very convenient. Come up from working, stop for gas. And there's a post office there. We could have put a gas station there. There's a convenience store there. Why don't we do that? So those people don't have to come into town and ruin the roads. They could stay right down there by themselves. Think about it. Right? Think about it. So why should we have to put up with what they want? Right? We need another gas station in this town. Like, I better get out of here.
Be careful.
Enough.
I just have one little
thing to say.
Oh, dear.
I'm sorry. I just got back into town yesterday, and this all came on me quickly. Okay, the development.
Name and address.
I'm sorry, Pat Jones, 159 Elm Street. The development is going to happen. Development's a good thing. I'm for the development. But why does it have to be gas service, food service? The two dirtiest, noisiest things that you can put anywhere. I've been in the restaurant business all my life, and I know what goes on around restaurants. I know what's required. And if it's going to be like a 7-Eleven kind of thing with a Taco Bell next to it that they're building now, and the gas pumps, not in my backyard, I'm sorry. Can't we put something else there? I mean, there's lots of things that could go there. Cleaner things, better things. The bank's good, the daycare's good. I don't know. I'm sure we can think of something better to put in there so that Ms. Bissonnette can get her worth out of it and the developer can get his worth out of it. I mean, I'm not against something happening there. Even though they need to take some of our land probably to make the road better. That's going to happen. I don't want it to happen, but it's going to happen probably. But let's just put something in that is not only going to benefit the town, make us look better, but be better for the environment and the people that live around there. I'm not a good speaker, but that's what was on my mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Pat.
Where are we?
So put another gray scope there.
What's that?
Time it goes back and forth, you have to open it up to each
Oh. They know what they're doing.
I guess
I know.
Any comments or anything else?
We're certainly not going to prolong this end of it. as-
We know it's getting late. We're here to ask if there's anything of us that you'd like to ask now, and then we're looking forward to coming back and answering some of the questions that were brought up.
I just have one comment. I don't know about you, but the biggest hurdle for me is the limited office zone, because that zone was put in place to protect the residents and to also allow for some use to be done. That's a pretty big hurdle. And I think that's like a stumbling block that I have. So I know you were looking for feedback back, and that's part of it.
I think that's something we'd like to look at and address in sort of a more holistic way. Townwide even, look at it, because, I mean, not to speak for you, Frank, but if it were feasible, I mean, it's certainly an easier course of action. We understand that.
Yeah, and I think it's the issue of, is there demand more than anything else? And I think that's what it is. When we had the childcare that came to us, never mind the positioning of where it is, I mean, this is a concept, this is a national company that actually is not in this area. It actually brings more to the table than just what it says. The same thing with the bank. The bank is a softer use, and that was kind of the intention. The center, being the gas station, we thought we kind of surrounded by the softer uses was the idea. But the fact that there's really no demand for the office is the other challenging part you have here, where there's other components that want to come on, and they have a time frame of, we got to get this done within this time, or else we can't wait for an office to have it work, and then you get to the economic challenge. So I feel for you, and I agree with you, but it's if it was there, I think, it would be part of the application in itself. There's just not a lot of office space going up, not only Enfield, but anywhere. It's just a challenge.
We'll give her the detail.
Yeah, be happy to.
Okay. I think that we know now what your concept is and what wants to go there. And I feel to have another public hearing for this again would be, I don't want to say a waste of time, but a lot of time to hear everybody again say basically the same thing. I think at this point, we know what you want to put there. Public knows what wants to go there. I think we should consider voting on these zoning changes rather than go on and on about an application that isn't even ahead of us, but a concept. So this is different for me. We don't generally do things like this, but I see your point wanting to know before you go further and further. I mean, to get your feelers out, how people think, and I think we got an idea of how everybody thinks of what everybody thinks about this.
Yeah, when we came 2 weeks ago, or somewhat, they didn't want to have a preliminary application. They wanted to know fruitfully, and that's what we wanted to make sure we gave to
And
you.
we do know. So, in my opinion, now there's only I'm 1 to 7. I think we know what you want to put there, and rather than to drag out an application or a concept that may or may not happen. I mean, let's just put this to the vote. We could vote for a zone change, because without the zone change, that's nothing. So that's my feelings, and otherwise, I think we'll just keep going on and on and on, and it's not going to resolve anything. The bottom line, you still have to change the zone. People want.
Well,
If we were able to address issues, I mean, it just seems like it would be a different.
Yeah, conceptually, I understand you want to bring it to an end, and we're not obviously looking at some sort of prolonged hearing, but our thought
you are.
is there a way we can, A, reduce the area that we're looking to rezone, B, is there a way to soften the use, that sort of
Or,
thing?
the intersection, we've
residential.
never really addressed what the changes would be to the street, because that's certainly not something that's not going to happen by itself. It's certainly going to be something that has to happen with the developer actually going in and doing something.
But
And
I think by us telling you what we think you should do is leading you down a path, thinking that maybe we're going to approve if you do these things. And I've.
Listen, we haven't said, what we haven't said to the commission, we don't expect the commission to do is make any sort of commitment. I mean, you're going to ultimately hear everything and vote, so we understand that. And so that's not what we're searching for. What we usually do in these type of hearings is then take the information back that we've heard from the public and see if there's a way we can address it in terms of what we're proposing, and maybe give the commission a better level of comfort. That's all. It's not to sort of, we're not looking to prolong this for the sake of, dilatoriness or to prolong it. What we look at is there a way that what we have, we can even soften more, if you will, or change in some way? And to a certain degree, that requires us to discuss it with the property owners.
So are you looking for a continuation then on the hearing?
I was just going to ask that. Do you want us to
I
continue
would say
this?
when's your next meeting, which is the first part of June, I assume?
June 4th is
Yeah.
the next meeting,
Are you
first
really
Thursday.
looking at what, 2 weeks?
Continuation on,
So that they can come back, I guess.
and,
Right.
and respond to some of the concerns?
Some
Is
of the
that-
concerns,
Exactly.
and again, can we in some way soften our proposal? Reduce the commercial area? And
Well-
that may not satisfy the commission.
Yeah,
I
it's not the
understand.
commission. We've got
No,
public,
no, listen, no,
know.
Ultimately, you guys make the decision. I can't satisfy the public. In a sense, there's always a competing tension here. There's what's beneficial to the town. There's the property owner wanting to use their property. There's obviously neighbors that have concerns. None of that is not legitimate, right? It's all legitimate. So is there a way we can look at it and again, as I say, reduce it, soften it, as Commissioner Longi said, is there a way to look at it as saying, we're going to go with a lesser of a zone, right? Go from BG to something else. I don't have that answer, but given the time and effort we've put in, we look for the time to be able to come up with those answers, and it may not satisfy y'all, and we get that. That's part of the game.
Part of doing this is an unknown of not knowing all the comments. We've certainly think we've mitigated quite a few by, there could have been a bigger crowd. That's certainly possible.
Right.
It could have been something that some of the answers were given and some of the people didn't know what the questions were. And some of the comments we were
Right.
quickly answered as to, a better explanation as to what our expectations were, for what we will be proposing and what we're asking for at this point. So, knowing we've worked on it for so long, and I think a heartfelt message from the Bissonnettes as well is that, maybe we have something that we can actually work with to make it be something you'd be more willing to entertain. Again, it may or may not make a difference, but, we worked on something for so long that we would like to actually see the opportunity of see if we can bring something else.
I've got to ask you that then, at what point do you, I mean, we're here for a zone change, or we're still discussing the application, and I'm totally confused on this whole, the way this is going. This isn't the way we do things. And you want to come discuss an application that really isn't before us, a zone change is, and then you want our opinion on what to do to soften it.
We're not softening the zone change.
For your opinion, we're saying we want to look at that issue and see if we can present something to the commission. We're not asking for your input on that.
My feeling is if the applicant wants to come back and to answer the questions that were brought ahead today, I believe that they should have the opportunity to do that. And then the public also has the opportunity to speak again, and then ultimately, obviously, we have the decision. I understand that you want the opportunity to answer questions that came about tonight. Whether you'll be able to, that's another story, but you do have that opportunity. And I think that since we have let them speak, we have to also go back to the public, just to be fair.
Listen,
Okay.
None of our design is to foreclose public
Okay,
participation.
which I didn't think it was.
No.
Wait just 1 minute. How does the rest of the commission feel? Do you want to continue this?
They're in here for a specific zone change, and that zone that they're asking for allows this type of business or whatever. And there's nothing you can do to soften that, because that's what's there, and that's what we got to vote on. So you could come back a zillion times, but whatever's allowed in that district is still allowed in that district, and I think that's what their concern is, that it's open to other things other than what you're proposing there.
No question. My thinking, again, having first have to talk to the property owner and the developer is there a way, A, we can reduce the zone? In other words, we're proposing rezoning X number of acres, 8.8. Am I right about that, Dave?
I don't think it's the size. I think it's
Just
what's included in that zone, what's allowed in that
Well, I
zone.
understand it, but as you reduce it, obviously you have a less of an impact.
The options
okay?
will be short, be much more limited.
Noise is noise.
Well,
I think we're just
I
gonna
don't
hear
know.
the same thing over
I don't
and
know
over
what
again.
it's going to, achieve by prolonging it. You came in with a certain request, and that's what it is. Period. You can't soften it because that's what it is. It's hard facts.
Nick, how do you feel about it?
I don't have a problem hearing what they're going to say if they come back.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, I think Peter made the point. I mean, that's what we're here for. But out of respect, I think they've done a nice job of the presentation. I mean, I have no problem continuing it, but I agree with Peter. It's the zone change. I mean, that's the ultimate decision here that we have to make. And whether it's whatever it's a gas station or anything else, it's the zone change that matters. I don't know, how do you soften that, I guess. I agree with Peter.
You can't.
I mean, you folks have done a really good
Pick a different
presentation, so
zone.
if you feel that you would like a continuance, I'd have a problem with that.
You can continue it.
Yeah. But I mean, to
Hopefully
be frank,
something-
it's the zone change, I mean, for me as well. I mean,
yeah, we fully understand that and appreciate it. So, again, it's looking at it, the thinking is, when you say you can't soften it, well, there are ways. Can you create a bigger buffer zone around where you do the zone change? So that, in other words, you compress it, we obviously will have to do less, but is it enough? And I can't answer that question tonight, and I don't want to propose doing it, because I can't, I can't tell you it'll work. We may come back to you and say, you know what, this is the best we can do, so, up or down, that's what it is.
Okay.
And we understand that. That's the way the game is played. We're not trying to do this out of some sense of dilatoriness. Nothing is going to improve in 2 weeks, in a sense, if we just come back in with the same thing. But, I owe it to my client. He owes it to the property owners who he's worked with to be able to sit down with them and say, can we in some ways, militate, right, the concerns. We'll never address them completely, right? If you put commercial there, it never gets addressed completely. But again, there is a vision for this property that even the town has had, parts of the town. Let's put it that way.
I was going to say the town and us is different, so.
I get that. I understand that. I understand that.
At previous meetings, it was part of the conversation was, we're willing to go back so many feet, and, we understand the buffers and the access and everything else. We tried to address all that, and obviously, we got to revisit some things that were brought forward. I mean, that was, a little bit of, something on our part that we have to work on. I mean, if you give us the opportunity, I'm sure we can try to come back with something. If we can't, we'll be, forthright, and, we understand where it goes, and we'll see what happens. But,
Okay.
it'll give us the opportunity to address, many comments that obviously other people came out to make sure that their voices were heard as well, and we respect that.
Right.
Okay, we have to let the public speak again.
Absolutely.
I mean, this could go on, we have to adjourn at 11 o'clock, just to let everybody know.
Mind if I just go with this guy?
The gentleman over there first?
Yeah. Do you want us to bring you the mic?
Sorry. Richard Guarini, 8 Carroll Street. I'm just here to,
You have to sit because
oh my God.
it picks up your voice.
Okay. Rich Guarini, 8 Carroll Street. I got one question here. It seems to me where, and not knowing any of you people, not knowing what your experience is, how long you've been sitting on the council, but I gotta understand that with all the different personalities, not each one of you, not every one of you thinks exactly the same way on every issue that's been presented here tonight. So I can't see you taking a vote. I can't see you taking a vote on anything until you've had a chance to talk between yourselves as to what the public is looking for. Then consider what they're offering. There's more info to come here. And just by talking with one another, I believe you'll come up with some things that perhaps we have never thought about. But I just think it's a bad move to combine both the sections together, and it's a bad move if you take them a vote.
I'm going to address this.
Thank you.
Typically, we don't address the public, but we can't talk amongst ourselves about the application once the application is pending. So we can't talk to you as the public.
No.
We can't talk amongst ourselves. So the applicant has the opportunity to come back and present it, and you have the opportunity to put your voice forward, but we can't have a conversation with you or with each other. So I just want to be clear.
Okay. I guess maybe we should be working with one individual rather than half a dozen. Thank you.
I'll vote for that.
Dan Blasco, 6 St. Thomas Street. I'm going to make it very quick. The petition was for R33 versus BG. This is all hypothetical. It is helpful to get a perspective of the goal, size of it. No matter what changes, it's a residential to a BG. If it's even changing the sign or the size or softening it, then it's a different petition with a different number, different hearing for a different argument. I appreciate the scope change of maybe trying to change something, and maybe that would be feasible. But the goal of today, at least from my understanding, is for the zone change. Yes or no? Our perspectives, at least the majority of our perspectives, addressed that type of change. Not gas station, daycare, what's actually going there, but more of the actual residential versus business. And that perspective has not changed no matter what changes do occur and what's represented. That perspective and opinion does not change. It's still for a zone change. So, thank you.
Good point. Good point. Anybody else?
I'm too tired.
Attorney, do you want to speak to this?
Really, we have very little, I have really nothing to add. You've heard what our approach is, and the only thing I would say is, when you have a zone change application, you can compress your zone as part of that application. In other words, if you want to do 20 acres and you say, how about, can we do 15? That's yes. You can't go from 20 to 30, but you can go down. So, I mean, that's really what we're saying. Let's look at, can we in some way, mitigate some of the issues?
No.
We're going to have to do a continuation.
Go ahead and make a.
I'll make a motion that we continue the hearing to June 4th.
Second.
Second. Okay.
All those in favor on Elizabeth Ballard?
In favor.
Kathleen Sarno?
No.
Peter Falk, no. Lori Longy?
Yes.
Nicholas Fakis?
I'm in favor.
Mike Ludwig? For.
1, 2, 3, 4,
You have
5.
four yeses and 2 noes. It passes. Tabled. See you on June 4th.
Did you vote?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He voted no.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6.
No, there were 6.
6.
4, 2.
4. Yeah, it passed.
Oh, you voted not to.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
Keep going through the schedule real quick. There's only one admin approval, and then we can leave.
Okay, no old business, no new business, no other business.
Administrator?
Yeah, we have an applicant that would like to put in. An applicant would like to put in a furniture store in the site where Mousepad used to be. I'm sure you're all familiar with Mousepad.
Right.
It's a simple change of use. It's a furniture store. I don't remember the square footage he's got, but it's allowed in the zone. It's not anything new addition to the building or anything confusing.
If you're
Enough changes to the parking lot.
Excuse me, it's where Whirly Ball is.
Aha.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I didn't
It's
get it.
it's the site of Mousepad in that thing where Whirly Ball is. So it's a largely vacant commercial center. If you're okay, we can do it administratively because it is such a simple change of use. Not exactly a confusing, not like a convenience store either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I mean,
That's all.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
They're not changing walls, or they're just going to already a space.
Yeah, exactly. An already used space.
Fine.
I don't believe there's any internal changes. I know there's no additions or expansions
Yeah.
of the building, no changes to the facade or parking or landscaping or anything.
Okay,
It's a different retail use.
yeah,
What
it's
else?
just
Yeah,
a different retail use, yeah,
That's
yeah.
That's all I got.
Great. Motion to adjourn? Oh,
Motion to adjourn?
yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Second. Are we at?
What do we have on there?
Have time to
Next
run home,
meeting?
too.
Oh, we have some unresolved issues, but can we just
What's the
table this stuff?
unresolved issues?
Let's just,
The only ones that are listed as solar panel because Mr. Drynan wanted us to put them there, but it sounds like we're going to have this June 11th meeting.
goes.
Whoever can come, can come.
excited around
So that'll take care of that. No other unresolved.
Okay.
oh, did you? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, let's,
Everybody's,
Have
All
a
right,
seat.
have a seat.
All right.
Sorry about that.
no, it's okay. I mean, I've been sitting here nice and quiet and listening.
Speak into the microphone, please.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm deaf.
but,
Name.
My name is John D'Angelo. I'm on 59 West Shore Drive, Shaker Pines Lake area. I've come to the town and I've wanted to do a solar system. I've been watching you guys in the paper and you're doing everything you can to, make the town more efficient energy-wise. And I'm trying to do the same thing in my house, and I get told I can't put solar panels on my whole roof. When I built my house, I positioned it that the sun runs across it all day long. But because I happened to put my chimney on that side of the roof, I'm told I can't go past it. And I, for the life of me, don't understand why. You want to make things more efficient, you want to make things better. I've got an opportunity to help myself financially by putting the panels on, and I'm getting told that I can't go past my chimney because it breaks up the array because of some ordinance or something in town. And for the life of me, I just don't understand why. I live on top of a hill that doesn't affect nobody. You know, I mean, I'm high, I'm way up. If there's ever water in town, I'm the last person ever drowned, because you'll be coming to my place. So nobody has given me a reason why I can't do this, except that the town says you can't. I went to CTEC Solar, which was somebody that in the past you guys have, I guess, kind of recommended or whatever. You had like 3 places, and they said they've been to you numerous times trying to get the okay to do the extra panels. But because there's something breaking it, they won't allow it.
That's our
And-
regulations.
I know.
For what?
Well,
what is it solving?
It's supposed to be we did this with a lot of 2 years of writing the solar regulations. It was a square or rectangular pattern. They're not saying that you can't go past the chimney. You would just have to go either below the chimney, depending on where it is. I'm not sure. But the whole idea was that it was a square or rectangular pattern connected in one unit, so that the people that could be opposite you in a neighborhood wouldn't have to look at an odd configuration. And that's why we did it. And so we're trying to be energy efficient. It works on some houses. You don't have to put it on your roof. We allowed you to do it in the yard. So it's not like people look at it and say, we're not allowing you to do that. That's not the case. You can put it up on your roof if it conforms with the configuration. You can put it as a ground mount. That's just the way the regulations work.
But you're limiting my usage. You're limiting the amount of usage I have. I'm losing roughly approximately 15 feet of my roof that I can't use, that I could put approximately 6 more panels.
And
not in your same pattern.
Yeah. But I mean, and honestly, I don't know. So in other words, what you're saying is, I've got 22 panels on this side. If he puts one underneath the chimney and then the other 6, that'd be okay.
No, as long as the pattern stayed square. If he wanted to go right along the bottom.
So you're stopping me at the chimney?
Yes, basically, because then you would not be your configuration. But just so you're aware, financial is not like a concern. Like, we don't do planning and zoning regulations based on your financial ability to be able to be energy efficient. That's not part of our purview. So that's the best way that I could explain it. So.
See, I mean, there's no logic behind it. I mean, I put the house up.
It's totally aesthetics. That's all it is. There's no logic. It's
And
just
you know how
aesthetics
many
that it
people-
looks better for all of them to go in
I hate to
one
say how many
direction.
people I talked to in town and said, don't say I said this, but they think it's ridiculous.
Some of us might think the same thing, but it is the regulations right now.
And just to maybe remind the gentleman, we are going to have a special meeting on this June 11th.
Oh, I'll be back.
Well, the intention is, I would direct you to the Clean Energy Committee, since they've kind of been the clearinghouse for a lot of these complaints, and I think their membership is going to show up and have a conversation with this committee and hopefully address some of those issues and at least get everything out on the floor.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just that I put everything up in specifically for that reason.
You're not alone.
You know?
And we can talk further if you'd like to.
All right. When is this meeting going to be?
June 11th. I'll give you my card after the meeting here.
Oh, okay.
We can chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay. I didn't mind listening, honest.
Actually, honestly, the agenda should not have listed it that way, I don't believe.
That was Mr. Drinan's suggestion last week.
That it was.
Put them as unresolved issues, the solar issues.
But it was, an unresolved issue for us is not any public comment. It's a.
I didn't accept the gentleman to speak.
Okay,
You guys did.
that was the, because it's a little bit misleading.
Emma had told them about public participation.
Okay.
Oh, and he didn't speak during it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to say.
This is why I never would have put it under
Okay,
unresolved issues,
okay.
but it wasn't my
Make a
choice.
motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor? Aye? Opposed?
Aye.
Nay? Passed. Unanimous.